Warning, this video contains themes of violence, drug use, and gang activity. Every effort has been made to censor any shocking clips that depict violence in line with YouTube's community guidelines. If you're over 18 and you want to see the uncut version of my videos, they're available to my supporters over on patreon.com/traplawross. This video has been put together as a historical account of the events that unfolded in this story. No disrespect is intended, and rest in peace to everybody in this video who lost their lives.
Chicago police have filed their first murder charge stemming from the deadliest weekend Chicago has seen this year.
She called Ted Town like that, cause we used to cause terrorists.
I was a part of the war on Chirac. I'm the product of the war on Chirac.
Smoking on Katie Packing, Posto, and Mister the most.
It's only two things that come to the streets. Jail or death. I cried a lot of nights being in the streets.
No, I'm talking about. I don't want no McDonald's. No McDonald's. Sending me messages on Instagram. You gonna be the next pack.
A lot of niggas get on and forget that like her.
I had to cut ties completely.
Yeah, this is no homicide investigation.
God be the one out here killing people. God just bought a switch. He just hang that bitch down here.
When it comes to Chicago drill music, there is no more famous hood than O Block. The Parkway Gardens housing development, as it's officially known, spawned a generation of rappers who pioneered the modern-day rendition of gangster rap that you may know as drill music. People like Chief Keef rose to the top of the rap game off of the back of booming tracks that painted a picture of life on one of America's most dangerous blocks. But while people like Chief Keef were getting famous with their stories and raps about the life on Chicago streets, people like King Von were actually in the streets, killing rival gang members or ops, settling scores for their dead members, and defending their block in what has become a literal domestic war zone. My recent video on the murder of FBG Duck was a 2.5-hour breakdown where we looked at dozens of murders taking place on Chicago's South Side, the shocking reality behind the Chicago drill music that has become so popular. It's a story that saw countless young, promising, and talented men losing their lives early for what really seemed like a feud over nothing. O Block and the war on Chicago's South Side tends to attract the main focus of coverage about Chicago drill and street goings on. But Chicago is a big city, with talented rappers and fearsome gangbangers hidden away in every corner and pocket. So today we're going to head east and look at a slightly less famous, but equally if not more bloody war, taking place in another part of Chicago that has had an enormous impact on the gangster rap and drill music scene coming out of the city. This is an area that has been so dangerous for decades now that the locals have nicknamed it Terror Town. And this is also an area that has spawned another one of the most famous rappers in Chicago drill history, G Herbo. Over the course of his career, G Herbo went from being shot at on the Terrortown blocks to touring the country and taking in millions of dollars. But that come up wasn't easy. Herbo grew up witnessing decades of danger and violence on his block, with many of his childhood friends losing their lives in front of his very eyes. Fortunately for G Herbo, he was able to put the pain that he witnessed and experienced in the streets into his art and his music, with his subsequent success taking him far away from the Terrortown blocks that terrorized him and his friends most of their childhood. I mean, it's no wonder that his biggest charting album is titled PTSD, but sadly, getting away isn't easy, and many of his friends wouldn't be so lucky. And while G Herbo was living at large, traveling on private planes, the war was still going on back at home. Year after year, bodies would continue dropping, and some of Herbo's friends would be wondering why he was so lucky and not them. This is a story of betrayal, brutality, but most importantly, brotherhood, with the gang that Herbo and his crew grew up representing going by NLMB, which on the streets stands for the No Limit Muskegon Boys, but to fans of Herbo's music, NLMB stands for Never Leave My Brothers. So today, we'll be taking a closer look at one of Chicago's most dangerous blocks, where dozens of men get left behind to die, and only a lucky few make it out alive. Chicago drill music and the gangs that young Chicago rappers affiliate themselves with tend to have long and storied histories. The Black Disciples and the Gangster Disciples that the likes of King Von and FBG Duck belonged to respectively also had a long history themselves. The BDs and the GDs folklore dates all the way back to the 60s, when the likes of Larry Hoover and David Barksdale fought for influence over the city's drug trade and thousands of young men looking for guidance in the most troubled areas of Chicago, and unfortunately leaving countless bodies in their wake. But when it comes to today's Eastside-based No Limit gang, the modern-day rappers and gangsters that rep No Limit actually descended from another Chicago street gang with a very long and complicated history too. In this case, it's the Black P Stones.
In the 60s, the biggest, baddest gang of all was the Blackstone Rangers. One of its organizers was a skinny kid from Aberdeen, Mississippi, an unlikely-looking leader by the name of Jeff Fort.
Originally known as the Blackstone Rangers, this was a street gang formed by young black men who lived around 66th Place and Blackstone Avenue in Chicago's South Side. This crew was apparently formed all the way back in 1959 at the St. Charles Institution for Troubled Youth by Eugene the Bull Hairston and Jeff the Angel Fort. And like many of the famous street gangs that we know today, the Blackstone Rangers originally formed to protect its members from the danger of the many other street gangs that were emerging in the streets of Chicago around the time.
Racial change, economic change, cultural change, they grew out of that turmoil.
One particular rival that the Blackstone Rangers had formed to protect themselves against were the Devil's Disciples from nearby Kenwood, not to be confused with the biker gang of the same name. Back and forth street battles between these two crews persisted throughout the 60s, by which point an estimated 200 people had joined the Blackstone Rangers, giving not only the rival gangs something to worry about, but also the local police.
Had you as a police officer ever seen anything like that before?
No. Never.
Eugene Hairston was the founder and leader of the Blackstone Rangers, going by the nickname Bull, with Jeff Fort his vice president and second in command, with him going by the monikers Black Prince or Angel, the latter apparently coming from his gift for diplomacy and an ability to help squash conflicts between the Rangers and other gangs. In fact, unlike the modern-day gangs of Chicago, who seem primarily concerned with settling scores and murdering rivals, back then Jeff Fort's talent for diplomacy were deployed in an effort to prevent the Blackstone Rangers from going to war and killing other gangs, with Jeff Fort instead attempting to forge alliances between these small and fractured street crews. And he was very successful at this, eventually forming a sprawling alliance or nation of gangs, counting a total membership in 1969 to be as many as 8,000 members, and forming a council of numerous gangs aiming to control the city, going by the title the Main 21.
21 gangs would join under the umbrella of the Blackstone Rangers. There would be a ruling council called the Main 21 and a new gang name, the Black P Stone Nation. Some would argue the P stood for power. The nation was 4,000 strong. There were some struggles over leadership, but in the end, it was Jeff Fort who emerged as the man in charge.
All the gangs were united under the banner of the Black P Stone Nation, or BPSN. Each gang in the nation were considered a brick in the pyramid, hence their infamous logo. And for a period starting in the late 60s, the organization actually gained political legitimacy, famously working with a local community association that had been given a $1 million grant, developing a program that aimed to get members of the Blackstone Rangers and the Devil's Disciples into honest work and employment programs. During this time publicly, the Black P Stones were beginning to look a lot more like a group of community activists than an active street gang. For example, some in politics around this time had praised the P Stones for having played a role in preventing violent reprisals from the black community in the wake of the Martin Luther King assassination. This had politicians at the time praising Jeff Fort for his successful gang diplomacy, with Fort even being invited to President Nixon's inauguration, leading many to believe that Jeff Fort might just have a bright future in politics. But under the surface, things were perhaps slightly more sinister. It was said that during this period, Black P Stones had been shaking down local store owners for protection money in exchange for preventing violence following the Martin Luther King assassination, with critics of the Black P Stones describing them more as a mafiosa-style protection racket than group of community activists. And from here, soon cracks would begin to emerge in the public persona of the Black P Stones. On the streets, they were at war with the Disciple Nation and Gangster Nation that would later merge into the Black and Gangster Disciple gangs, made famous in modern-day drill music. In fact, as a result of this violent conflict playing out on the streets, eventually the Black P Stones leader and founder, Eugene Bull Hairston, would arrange an assassination attempt on Black Disciples founder David Barksdale, aka King David, in 1968. The shooting of King David would be carried out by a group of 14-year-old P Stone members who would attempt to assassinate David Barksdale armed with M14 rifles in a contract killing being paid only a sum of $1 each. King David would initially survive this assassination attempt, but unfortunately his gunshot injuries would later claim his life around 6 years after the shooting. Eventually the authorities would crack down on the Black P Stones as a political organization, prosecuting Jeff Fort himself for misusing federal funds in connection to the job training program made possible by the city's $1 million grant. This was a move which some considered simply a right-wing attack on Black Chicago's attempt to bring about legitimate change through politics.
We were trying to do something about a situation that was literally destroying this community.
With many pointing out that only a fraction of that $1 million grant ended up in the hands of the P-Stones, but that simply didn't matter when the headlines read, "Gang leader steals $1 million from the US government." Jeff Fort would later be found guilty of conspiring to misapply federal funds, being sentenced to 5 years in prison. During his time in jail, Jeff Fort would convert to Islam, more specifically, the black Muslim organization, the Moorish Science Temple of America. And upon being freed in 1976, Fort would form the El Rukan tribe of the Moorish Science Temple, with El Rukan translating to the pillar in Arabic, and coming up with a new nickname, swapping out the formerly diplomatic title of the Angel, now referring to himself as Chief Malik, or the Ruler. And in the process of establishing his new religious organization, Jeff Fort also purchased an old vacant movie theater called the Oakwood on the corner of 39th and Drexel. This would become the legitimate headquarters for the El Rukan, and the religious transformation of the Black P-Stones was presented to the public as a positive change for the group. However, local authorities thought otherwise, insisting that Jeff Fort's new religious organization was simply a front for a large drug dealing operation that would operate throughout Chicago through the 70s and 80s. And during this time, Jeff Fort organized yet another alliance of gangs in the city and prisons known as the People Nation, bringing the likes of the former Black P-Stones, the Latin Kings, Mickey Cobras, Vice Lords, and other gangs all together under the banner of the People Nation. I mean, despite the negativity that he brought to his community, you do really have to admire the vision that Jeff Fort had to try and bring this many people together in his community. And perhaps people were truly right when they said he had a lot of potential in real politics. But the reality was, Jeff Fort was playing with fire, and eventually the authorities would crack down on his operation. A 1983 drug bust, in connection to a large shipment of drugs in Mississippi, earned Jeff Fort a 13-year sentence for narcotics trafficking. But from here, even in prison, it would appear as if Jeff Fort kept a tight grip on the large organization of gangs that he had built up in the streets of Chicago. And this meant that even behind bars, bloodshed would continue to play out on Chicago's streets. For example, in September 1988, the original founder of the Blackstone Nations, Eugene Bull Hairston, would be killed execution style, with authorities certain that it was Jeff Fort that had handed down the orders from prison. But even more shocking than the allegations of drug trafficking and murder for hire were earlier accusations leveled at Jeff Fort relating to terrorism and linking him to Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi. Apparently, over the course of several phone calls made to his troops from jail, Jeff Fort instructed members of his organization to meet officials from Libya in what was originally proposed as a pilgrimage to Mecca and the Middle East, was later exposed as an attempt to make a multi-million-dollar deal with Middle Eastern terrorists, as apparently Jeff Fort had directed El Rukan members to meet with Libyans in Panama City and brokering a deal to receive $2.5 million and a large cache of high-powered weaponry in exchange for a commitment to wage war on the local authorities in the United States in what was described as Operation Roc Bomb. A court was later told that Jeff Fort's religion organization/gang had made an agreement with a foreign government to commit terrorist acts in the United States on their behalf in exchange for a $2.5 million bag. Honestly, this is one of the most outrageous and shocking accusations that has ever been leveled at a gang leader in the United States history. Fort would be found guilty of these accusations and ultimately given a hefty 80-year prison sentence. Jeff Fort is still alive to this day, serving out that sentence at the ADX Florence Supermax prison, one of America's most secure and brutal prison facilities. Jeff Fort's family still fight for his release to this day, but just considering the insane amount of danger and terror he was able to inflict on the Chicago community, and considering what he and his organization were attempting to do in cooperation with a foreign government, it's very hard to believe that his release will be coming anytime soon. The history of Jeff Fort and the Black P-Stones continue to cast a dark shadow over Chicago communities to this day, as the next generation of children of P-Stone and affiliated gang members would move around Chicago and grow up. The identity of the Black P-Stones would be passed around, splintered and distorted, with numerous small organizations breaking off, but retaining the P-Stone identity and remaining active in the streets and prisons of Chicago and America beyond. But eventually, a renegade set descending from the original P-Stones would emerge based in Chicago's east side. This group would eventually go by the name No Limit, with the name apparently signaling a heritage handed down from the Black P-Stones, but with no interest in following the rules or limits imposed by some of the more militant forefathers of the gang back in the day when it was a religious or political movement. The young orphans of Jeff Fort's fallen organization would grow up and cultivate cultivate their own identities and feuds, which would get very deadly indeed. Violence would continue to play out all over Chicago, particularly one small area of territory in the east, which would eventually become so dangerous that it would earn itself the nickname Terror Town. Today's story is most concerned with a 4-block by 4-block rectangle of territory bounded by Yates and Colfax Avenues between 75th and 79th Street. If you type Terrortown into YouTube, you'll see numerous drive-thrus and drone shots depicting the rundown blocks of the area, which looks to be near abandoned by city authorities. And residents say that in these areas, murder is a common occurrence. In the 90s, after the incarceration of Jeff Fort, his son Antonio was one of many descendants of the original P-Stones who fought for control of this area, with the battles taking place on the streets there apparently being so deadly and terrifying that the area would eventually become known as Terror Town. And naturally, with the infamy of his famous father, it wouldn't take long for Antonio Fort to find himself a target. In 1992, Antonio Fort would be jailed for conspiracy to purchase half a kilo of cocaine, and after his release, power struggles would continue in the area. Events would unfold unfortunately for Antonio, and on the 28th of March 1997, Antonio's bullet-riddled body would be dragged out of Wolf Lake. And in the decade that followed, petty violence would play out as more and more gangsters vied for control of the streets of Terror Town. And if the rival gangs didn't get you, the police certainly would. As the years went by, slowly descendants of Jeff Fort would be taken off the street one by one, facing arrest after arrest, with his other son Wakita picked up for drug charges by the police in 1996, with reports around this time explaining that since Jeff Fort's lengthy incarceration in a Supermax facility, the religious focus of the El Ruckin that he had started had fallen away, with his remaining descendants reclaiming the Black P-Stone identity and going to war with other famous Chicago gangs like the Gangster Disciples over control of the area. During these years, a nephew of Jeff Fort named Eric Gothero earned himself the nickname the Prince of Terror Town, apparently establishing a huge open-air drug operation at 79th and Essex known as the Pow Wow Line, a scene which I imagine wasn't dissimilar to the fictional open-air drug market Amsterdam depicted in HBO's The Wire. But eventually, this $15,000 a day drug operation would indeed be taken down too in what the police described as Operation Terror Town 2. Jeff Fort's nephew would be busted along with 18 other people in a raid that discovered an enormous shrine to Jeff Fort himself, along with 13 cars, 10 guns, 125 grams of cocaine, and a whopping 900 grams of heroin. And as a result, the gangs on the streets of Terror Town in the 2010s would be left without leadership, becoming a much more fractured collection of renegade P-Stone gang sets, slowly losing their connection to Jeff Fort, the Blackstone Rangers, or the heritage of politically motivated gangs that had once controlled the area. Teenage gangbangers would grow up, knowing they descended from P-Stones, but establishing new rules, new territories, and new disputes, with the young teenagers in the area giving very little thought to the religious, political, or social movements that Jeff Fort had at least tried to pioneer through the 60s, 70s, and 80s. But more interesting than that to me was that in the streets and blocks of Terror Town were the next generation of young men growing up close to the cycle of violence and gang warfare that their elders had endured, with some taking part in the war, killing and being killed as part of a new generation of conflict in the streets of Terror Town, while others would take the scenes that they had experienced and witnessed and channeling those experiences into music, making hit songs about the lifestyle that they had grew up around, becoming successful musical artists and getting a once-in-a-lifetime shot to escape the cycle of violence and get out of the city with their lives intact. Despite 75th to 79th Streets being so dangerous and gang-infested that it's literally nicknamed Terror Town, the area, particularly 79th Street, has spawned some of the biggest Chicago rappers who avoided gangs. You may be surprised to find out that one of the most successful musicians and entrepreneurs of our generation, Kanye West, grew up in a childhood home only minutes away from Terror Town. And despite later in his career claiming to be affiliated with the Gangster Disciples, Kanye actually had early lyrics where he discussed encountering Black P-Stones in the neighborhood and having to go by a nickname so they would leave him alone. And Kanye would even bring rap legend Jay-Z back to the area many years later. But when it comes to the most famous name in the rap game associated with the No Limit gang in Terror Town, we're of course talking about G Herbo, formerly known as Lil Herb. Herbo would meet fellow No Limit drill legend Lil Bibby at a local youth center after school. Together, Herbo and Bibby would spark a friendship, eventually becoming collaborators and putting their block on the map as far as drill music is concerned. Lil Bibby made big moves in the music industry through both the booth and the boardroom, eventually partnering up with his brother G Money and starting the record label Grade A Productions. playing a big role in bringing top-tier talent like JuiceWrld and the Kid Laroi to the forefront of music. But away from the music and back to the streets, another famous name you might associate with No Limit is Kyro, an outspoken affiliate who will play a major part in the beef as this story develops. And another name from the streets that you might know from the music is MadMaxx, aka C Money or Killer Chris. He's possibly the most active killer in the street side of this story, becoming infamous in both the streets and on the internet for allegedly being a fearless shooter who claimed the lives of numerous enemies. Now, as far as the streets goes, there were allegedly two main leaders of No Limit back in the early days. Rumoured to be a direct relative of Blackstone Rangers founder Eugene Bull Hairston, G-Bull was from 78th Street, one of two commanding members of No Limit who apparently played a role in mentoring the likes of Lil Bibby, White Sean and G-Money, with another gang leader by the name of G Gill, hailing from 79th Street, commanding another set of the younger generation of No Limit, mentoring the likes of G Mainsky, G Herbo, Jock, and MadMaxx himself, who would post publicly on Instagram about coming up under G Gill. Other important names associated with the No Limit movement who you might hear mentioned in this story include Fearro, Lil Wet, aka Wet 'em Up, and Crazy James. There's quite literally dozens of people who claim No Limit publicly, with some estimates of its membership online suggesting that the gang is 200 people strong. It would be difficult to identify and name every member here, and that's really not something I'm trying to do right now. But that's a selection of some of the most important names who you'll be hearing about over the course of this story. The fact that No Limit is such a large gang is perhaps the reason that the crew was able to survive such a long war with so many enemies. As in this story, there are three distinct feuds going on between No Limit and their allies and their enemies in different parts of the city. The three groups that No Limit and their allies are feuding with specifically include the Lakeside Gangster Disciples, some of whom go by KTS or Kill to Survive, Pocket Town, another group of gangster disciples, and BlackMobb, a group descending from the original Black P Stones in the area. So let's start by taking a closer look at the Lakeside GDs, some of whom go by the terrifying nickname KTS or Kill to Survive. Lakeside are arguably No Limit's biggest opposition. They're a crew made up of gangster disciples and vice lords in a particular area of Terrortown. South of Terrortown is No Limit territory, with an overlapping area in the southeast known as Lakeside, hence the intense rivalry between these two groups. In fact, the nearby McDonald's, located on 2425 East 79th Street, has been the scene of much bloodshed and drama in this feud, but we'll get to that later. Some from this area and the nearby Pocket Town go by the nickname KTS or Kill to Survive, sometimes referred to as Cutthroat. The terrifying implications of those nicknames alone should be enough to give you an idea of just how deadly this feud can get. In fact, some KTS members even sport a large shoot to kill crosshair tattoo on their necks, a terrifying prospect which likely inspired fear into pretty much anyone these guys encountered, gang member or not. In fact, KTS members had local residents so terrified that there's examples from back in 2010 with locals posting lists of gang members to avoid on Facebook and telling others that their area is under attack. Associated with this group, you've got the likes of KTS Dre and KTS Von, both feared hitters due to their family's gang ties, with their father Vinny apparently having a deep history of involvement in the local gangs. Vinny was apparently an OG gang member from the area who had clearly taught his sons the ways of the street from early. But in addition to being shooters, the likes of Von and Dre were also prolific posters on social media, being seen in numerous clips online, driving through rival territories armed and looking for a response. Another significant Lakeside member who will be important later in this story is Posto, a local member who would sadly lose his life, with this incident representing yet another significant escalation in the war between these two areas. But before we get to that, there's actually another Lakeside member whose killing would represent one of the early triggers of this deadly war. That young man's name is Nutso, who was killed by another group close to No Limit in 2008. That group's name is the Muskegon Boys. The Muskegon Boys are a set of gangster disciples from Terrortown. Originally going by the Muskegon Block Gangsters, they hail from 78th and Muskegon Avenue, just off of Exchange. This set was apparently pioneered by two locals, going by the street names of Doski and Whitebread. In the past, they may have been considered closer to the fellow gangster disciples in Lakeside, but events would unfold, driving these two GD sets apart and the Muskegon Boys and No Limit much closer together, with the alliance between these two crews famously being NLMB, or the No Limit Muskegon Boys, sometimes referred to with the backronym Never Leave My Brothers. Many of the younger members of No Limit and the Muskegon Boys would form close friendships, with several individuals playing a significant role as part of this story. People like Zael, Roc, Kobe, and Fazo. As mentioned previously, the Muskegon Boys and Lakeside had formerly been on good terms due to their shared GD heritage. But that would all change around 2008, when younger members of the Muskegon Boys would get their hands on firearms, ultimately leading to deadly outcomes between the crews. Eventually, a beloved member from Lakeside by the name of Nutso would be shot and killed. Nutso, real name Larry Pickens, was murdered on his porch at 7815 South Marquette Avenue in June 2008. This represented an early escalation between the Muskegon Boys and Lakeside, with the Muskegon Boys eventually forming that NLMB alliance with No Limit. But from here, things would get much more complicated. As I mentioned earlier, No Limit would be battling two other gang sets, in addition to their war with Lakeside. Playing a small part of this is a historical overlap between some members of Lakeside and Pocket Town. And to understand this, we've got to take a closer look at Pocket Town, another gang set who would battle No Limit fiercely for control of the streets of Chicago. Pocket Town is yet another gang with its heritage from the Black Pea Stones. This can be seen in graffiti all over the area depicting the 5-point star depicted in early Black Pea Stone folklore. This area apparently earned the name Pocket Town due to its triangular shape and is based towards the greater Grand Crossing area, a short drive west of Terrortown. Nearby Sircon City is another older gang set with loose connections to No Limit. Gangs have been active in Pocket Town as far back as the 1980s. In fact, there's one kingpin from the area named Nate Hill, who became one of America's biggest drug traffickers, apparently forging close ties with the Black Pea Stones before eventually being taken down in a big bust. Now, according to comments on Reddit, the gangster disciples in Pocket Town in the 90s were somewhat organised, but fractures in the group throughout the 2000s would see individuals branching off, forming new alliances, and breaking free of the past as new feuds emerged between members from varying sets. For example, you've got the likes of Rio, hailing from Pocket Town, but also affiliated with KTS. One individual who played a role in early feuds related to Pocket Town goes by the name of Lil Pez, or Paris. He was murdered just age 16 in Grand Crossing in March 2008, being found with a gunshot wound to the head on the sidewalk of the 1300 block of East 72nd Street around 11 PM. His sister would tell the news that she'd feared her brother had fallen in with local gangs, with it being believed that Lil Pez had formed links with gang members in both Lakeside and Pocket Town, with it being believed that his killing marked a significant escalation in tension in the area. So by 2008, we have the likes of the Muskegon Boys and No Limit warring with the Lakeside GDs, or KTS, as well as former Pea Stones based in Pocket Town. But there's just one more piece to this complicated puzzle, because there's yet one more significant group famous for being constantly at war with No Limit, a set of gangsters based in the north of Terrortown, descending from the original Black Pea Stones, who go by the name of BlackMobb. In the north of Terrortown, there's a territory controlled by a group called BlackMobb, based on 74th to 75th and Phillips, only a few blocks north of 79th when No Limit call home. One of the most famous and feared names from BlackMobb is Shootashellz. Much like MadMaxx, Shootashellz had allegedly played a role in numerous killings as part of this feud, apparently cultivating a fearsome reputation in the streets. But we'll learn more about him later in the story. BlackMobb is a set branching off from the original Pea Stones, descending from Jeff Fort, who claimed Terrortown since the early 90s. It's said that over the years following the large busts on the original Pea Stone leadership that descended from Jeff Fort, BlackMobb in the north would continue on the Pea Stone legacy, controlling the drug trade in the area. But as renegade Pea Stone sets like No Limit formed, for a period these newer sets would be expected to pay a tax to the original generation of Black Pea Stones, BlackMobb in the north. Essentially, if these new younger No Limit gangsters wanted to sell drugs in Terrortown, they would have to pay the OGs from BlackMobb, and as you can probably imagine, that is where tension started. It's said that at some point in the 90s, former leader of No Limit, G Bull, was killed, though there's very little information online about that particular incident. But what we do know is that into the noughties, a new leadership figure for the No Limit troops emerged, a man known as Hellrel, aka G-Rel, or Rugotti, not to be confused with another Hellrel from Lakeside, who we'll discuss later in this story. Up until this point, BlackMobb and No Limit had been historically friendly, but soon a turf war would break out between these two factions. A No Limit member by the name of Vito had allegedly been selling drugs in BlackMobb turf. He was ultimately attacked for not paying tax or showing respect to the elder Pea Stones controlling that area. Retaliation from No Limit would soon follow, and story has it that Vito would attempt to shoot up an enemy from BlackMobb, unsuccessfully attempting to kill them with their family present. And this reckless act of disrespect would apparently spark the bitter war between BlackMobb and No Limit. Eventually, on the 27th of April 2009, Vito, real name Davis Johnson, would be murdered in the street in Terrortown. After apparently being confronted on the street about the disrespect, Vito was allegedly shot 5 times in front of a large crowd. Police were called to the scene of the shooting at around 1:20 in the morning, attending the 7800 block of South Essex, where they found Vito with gunshot wounds in his chest, just a few blocks from his home, and he would sadly be pronounced dead by 2:18 AM. Vito's killer went by the name of Boo from BlackMobb. Real name Trinity Walton. He was charged with the killing of Vito, ultimately getting 60 years in prison. The loss of Vito hit No Limit members hard, and surviving members would regularly bring him up in conversation and in songs. Herbo would rap on his computer's freestyle that he drops the 5 for Vito, a reference to doing a downward 5-finger hand sign as a mark of disrespect to the 5-point star that represents the early Black P Stone movement which BlackMobb descended from. Dropping the 5s is essentially a P Stone killer hand sign. Showing respect for their fallen brother Vito would echo through everything the No Limit members did and said for years to come. Even many years later, when Lil Bibby signed JuiceWrld, he became so indoctrinated into the gang's way of talking, he'd regularly be seen on camera swearing on Vito's life in regular conversation.
On Vito, this nigga good. On Vito, this nigga get paid.
The killing of Vito caused No Limit members to identify as BMK or BlackMobb killers. And considering the separate beef going on with the gangster disciples from Lakeside, many No Limit members would also identify with the GDK or GD killer movement. In addition to dropping the 5, many would be seen in pictures doing the upside down pitchfork hand sign commonly associated with the GDK movement. And once again, upon signing to Lil Bibby, you might catch pop singer JuiceWrld throwing up GDK in numerous pictures too. And since this meant that No Limit members were beefing both Black P Stones and gangster disciples at the same time, many from No Limit would identify as EBK or Everybody Killers. Sadly, however, the murder of Vito was just the beginning of a long and bloody war between these groups. And in the decade plus that would follow, countless men from every corner and pocket of Terrortown would lose their lives to gun violence. And while not every killing in this story would be associated with these specific feuds, the sad truth is the young members growing up in Terrortown would be forced to witness death and destruction throughout their most formative years, no doubt having an incredibly detrimental effect on their mindsets and prospects for the future. The next tragedy would strike on July 2nd, 2009, when senior NLMB member James Robinson, aka J-Mo or Prince Chico, would be shot and killed around 10 PM near the 79th Street of Yates Avenue. He was found by police on the street with a bullet in his head. Prince Chico would be another of the names that would be sorely missed by the young members of No Limit. Just like Vito, Herbo would go on to memorialize Chico in several of his songs, like the track East Side Story, where he would reminisce growing up around Vito, Hellrel, and Chico in the neighborhood. Fortunately, Herbo was one of the examples of a Terrortown native who was able to take what he witnessed in the streets and turn it into art. Sadly, many others wouldn't be so lucky, and to make matters worse, it wouldn't only be the ops that young men in Terrortown would have to fear, as many of the young teenagers in the area forced to carry weapons to defend themselves from potential rivals, hell-bent on shooting at them and taking their lives, as a result would unfortunately also face the prospect of the police shooting at them too. In April 2010, Zael, a beloved member of the Muskegon Boys, will become the latest young man in Terrortown to lose their life to gun violence. But in this case, instead of being shot by the ops, Zael would lose his life after a dramatic shootout with Chicago police. He was allegedly stopped by the cops at 10:30 PM, jumping out of the car and apparently opening fire. The police would return fire, striking Zael, real name Zael Jackson, eventually taking him into custody and taking his weapon. But sadly, his injuries would be too much, and he'd be pronounced dead at 1:45 AM. After this incident, some from No Limit would say that they were CPDK, a trend that surely would worry the police at the time. But sadly, the loss of Zael would be followed by the murder of another beloved member from the Muskegon Boys, as on April 12th, 2010, 19-year-old Fazo Robinson, known as G Fazo to his friends, was participating in a dice game at the 2900 block of East 79th Street. At some point, apparently things went left, with gunshots being heard and the police responding to reports of a shooting. Once they arrived on the scene, they would find Fazo shot in the back, taking him to South Shore Hospital, where he would sadly be pronounced dead. Fazo would be sorely missed by his friends in the No Limit Muskegon Boys, with the likes of Herbo going on to shout out Fazo countless times in his songs. He would also name his popular 2014 debut mixtape Welcome to Fazo Land, as well as popularizing a trend of referring to white Nike Air Forces as G Fazos in his honor. This is something that future pop sensation JuiceWrld would do in some of his songs, with this apparently coming from the fact that Fazo himself was a huge fan of the popular Nike sneaker silhouette. No arrests were made following G Fazo's killing, but many believe that the killing was the result of the ongoing beef with Lakeside. Following his passing, images of G Fazo would circulate with the caption "Lakeside Killer," suggesting that perhaps before his death he had indeed played a role in violence against Lakeside, possibly attracting retaliation. However, others that are closer to Fazo would suggest that his death at the dice game was nothing to do with the ongoing feud, but regardless of who was responsible, it's believed that Fazon was a top member of the Muskegon Boys, leading to their enemies in Lakeside taking advantage of this loss and beginning to target Fazo's friends and family. Exactly a year after Fazo's death, a memorial barbecue in celebration of his life was held at 79th and Escanaba Avenue. Here, Fazo's family and friends would be gathered on the block when a car pulled up, slowing down, rolling down the window, and someone inside opening fire. 4 grown men and a 10-year-old boy would be hit, but fortunately no deaths were recorded. Sadly, this was just another example of how ruthless the shooters in this story were willing to get. And from here, naturally, things would continue to escalate and blood would continue to spill between these two warring groups. Violence between the No Limit Muskegon Boys and their enemies continued in Terrortown throughout 2011. On June the 3rd, Boss Blizz, real name Randall Cummings, an older figure in the No Limit community, and allegedly the father of Fearro from No Limit, who would have only been 7 years old at the time, would be shot multiple times, being found lying dead at 6801 South Crandon Avenue. Witnesses say that after an argument, a silver car fled the scene, with this happening just down the road from a police station, with the police themselves even hearing the gunshots. Now, popular Chicago drill documentary channel Chicago Scene 88 has suggested that the alleged shooter in this crime was KTS Rio from Pockettown, and if Chicago Scene 88's research is to be believed, No Limit would hold a near decade-long grudge against Rio for this incident. But sadly, only days after that incident, another of No Limit's enemies would end up losing their life. Hakeem Graham, a 20-year-old with suspected ties to BlackMobb, was shot multiple times and killed on June the 6th, 2011. And then another suspected affiliate of BlackMobb was gunned down on November the 1st, 2011 at 7:45 in the morning at the bus stop at the 2400 block of East 75th Street. 18-year-old Rayvon Martin was shot in the back of the head, execution style, as a bus approached. 2011 was a bloody year in Terrortown, but things would only escalate further in 2012 when one of the most bloody incidents in this story took place on the streets of Chicago. On February the 19th, 2012, just before 7 p.m, Lakeside members had driven through No Limit territory looking for their ops. At this point, they apparently spotted a large group of No Limit members standing outside of a liquor store on the 2500 block of East 79th Street at the intersection with Essex Avenue. A shooter in a beige vehicle allegedly leaned out the car, opening fire at the group with an automatic weapon with an extended clip. 5 people were injured in the shooting but survived, including a 14-year-old, but 2 people would sadly lose their lives at the scene. A 53-year-old by the name of Gregory Glindsey, also known as Alamo, and a 19-year-old by the name of Jamal Harris, also known as Roc. Despite causing numerous injuries, the KTS shooters from Lakeside didn't break the spirits of the No Limit soldiers. Going forward, they would openly honor their fallen friend Roc, beginning to refer to their territory in Terrortown as Roc Block. Roc is actually the reason that you'll hear the likes of G Herbo and others frequently referring to where they're from as Roc Block, and Herbo himself would go on to honor Roc in many songs. KTS Von, heavily rumored to have been involved with the shooting, would mock Roc's death on Instagram, posting an image of Roc's headstone with a gun and pow emoji. Others affiliated with KTS would later take to social media to mock No Limit's losses and bait them to retaliate. But sadly, the violence was still just escalating from here. 6 months later, on August the 23rd, 2012, another mass shooting targeting No Limit members would leave another 8 people injured, with this incident taking place on the 7800 block of South Essex Avenue, only a block away from the previous mass shooting that claimed the lives of Roc and Alamo. According to police, 2 people opened fire from a moving car around 9:15 p.m. 8 people would be shot in this drive-by, with the news reporting victims from ages 14 to 28. A 28-year-old man was shot in the knee, a 16-year-old boy shot in the foot, another 16-year-old boy shot in the leg, a 20-year-old man shot in the leg, a 14-year-old shot in the arm, a 15-year-old shot in the neck, and a 19-year-old woman shot in the arm. The day after this shooting, Kyro from No Limit would tweet, telling the world that he was in pain. G Herbo was also one of the individuals targeted in these incidents, with Herb later opening up in interviews about being in the shooting that hit 8 people, including his 13-year-old cousin.
It was kind of big. It was like 8 of us got shot. Me, my younger cousin. My cousin was like 13.
Apparently at one point Herbo himself was shot in the foot, and apparently at one point a bullet passed through his hat, narrowly missing his head.
I got hit in the, actually in the foot, like it was minor. The bullet went like through my hat. Like I had my hat on like on some Swiss Beats type shit. A lot of leg shots and stuff like that.
After the shooting, G Herbo and G Fearro would go back and forth on Twitter arguing over who had the worst lower body injury from the shootout, with Fearro himself claiming to have taken multiple bullets to the leg. Meanwhile, Ramo from No Limit would tweet telling his comrades from Rock Block to get well soon. This enormous wave of shootings shocked the Chicago community, with the Chicago Sun-Times posting a provocative cover story with an enormous headline reading Terror Town and a picture from the scene of the shooting of a body lying in the street. Others reporting on the incident referred to a war between two factions of the Black P Stones, perhaps a reference to No Limit and BlackMobb. And to make the story even more crazy, after that second shooting, according to police, a dozen squad cars were sent to a nearby motel where a car riddled with bullets and covered in blood was spotted after the shooting. An apparent trail of blood leading from the car into one of the rooms would end with a dramatic SWAT team raid that, unfortunately for the police, led to nobody being found and the cops ultimately being unable to determine whether the blood belonged to a shooter or a victim that had fled the scene. As a result, in an effort to disrespect No Limit going forward, KTS Von would begin referring to them as No Limbs. And naturally, in retaliation to both shootings and the ongoing disrespect from the ops, No Limit members would hit the streets looking for revenge. In the days following the incident, G Herbo had tweeted about following the shooter, then going on to tweet that he had just got off the phone with his own shooter telling them that he needs to see something on the news. And then 2 days later, on August the 27th, Herbo would tweet saying that 3 people got shot on the 5, referring to BlackMobb territory where Herbo's auntie lived, as well as firing off another tweet saying that his hitters are still in the field for him. G Herbo clearly went through a lot during this time, and his life in the dangerous streets of Terrortown as a member of No Limit meant that he could be the target of an assassination at any moment. Most of the No Limit members couldn't really say that they were safe in the streets of Chicago, but that very same month of the second shooting, a couple of young men from No Limit made the decision to try something different, making some music about the lifestyle that they were experiencing at the time, with no idea just how big their music would eventually become, eventually attracting millions of fans and a potential route out of the dangerous blocks of Terrortown. G Herbo had started out rapping, just recording little 60-second songs on his flip phone, and this was something he had apparently been encouraged to do by his fellow No Limit homie Lil Bibby. Lil Bibby and G Herbo met in a youth group that they were forced to attend in order to keep out of trouble, and after sparking up a shared love of music, Bibby would later take G Herbo to a studio on 79th and Luella to record professional standard music, with this experience ultimately leading them to make many songs together. Lil Herb, as he was known then, and Lil Bibby would have their first Chicago drill hit on August the 5th, 2012, when they uploaded their song Kill Shit to YouTube. That song today has over 50 million views on YouTube and over 20 million streams on Spotify. Kill Shit was a breakthrough moment for No Limit in the rap game, and Herbo and Bibby would be putting their whole crew on the map. They had lyrics referencing the grimy life that they had lived in Terrortown. The track had Herbo rapping about how he knows people ready to do homicides. He raps that the gang No Limit are 30 years running and 30 years gunning. He shout-outs 150, another name for the Rock Block, which would become a frequent quotable in Herbo's music. Bibby would show love to Rock on the track and vowing to shoot at his ops, claiming his affiliation to No Limit in numerous lyrics, and dropping bars where he claims that he will shoot their ops off of their porches. Bibby even goes as far as to say RIP the police, and saying that his team are cop killers, perhaps an earlier reference to No Limit members claiming to be CPDK after the death of Zael. These violent and grimy rap verses, combined with a banging 2012 era Chicago drill beat, cemented Kill Shit as a hit, one of the founding tracks of the Chicago drill movement, which up until that point in 2012 had been dominated by Black disciple rappers like Chief Keef. The success of Kill Shit would bring a taste of legitimate passive income to the young members of the No Limit crew, with the rap game emerging as one of the first opportunities to break the cycle and see some success outside of the dangerous streets of Terrortown. Some would be able to get out that way, but others might not be able to take the same route. And so, in spite of positive signs in music, the remainder of 2012 would be incredibly rough for the No Limit Muskegon Boys, as they would continue to be targeted by rivals, with one particular exchange of violence being captured on video and being immortalized forever as one of the most haunting moments in Chicago drill history. G Herbo and Lil Bibby weren't the only Terrortown natives to have a crack at making music, because over on Lakeside, KTS members had been making their own songs too, releasing early tracks to YouTube in October 2012, mainly rapping over Atlanta-style trap beats. KTS Von will release songs like Smoke, which featured lyrics dissing Gotti, a member from an unrelated rival gang to Lakeside, whom was allegedly the first person that KTS Von had killed, with his adlib and catchphrase "Don't Go Gotti" appearing frequently in his music and on the clothes of KTS members. And Von would end the song with the terrifying lyric, "Don't be surprised if the cutthroats kill ya." He had another big song drop in October of 2012 called "I'm Off Dat," where he rapped his Lakeside bro God that it's a man down in Terror Town, and that people need to move if they don't want to end up like Gotti.
It's a man down in Terror Town. If you don't wanna go, Gotti better move around.
He's got another line where he says he caught his ops lacking and now they know Gotti. He also has the track Sneak Snitching, where he ironically kinda sneak snitches on himself, opening the song with an extended intro from the show First 48, explaining how killers are most likely to be found in the first 48 hours of a case, with Von going on to rap that recently the detectives put him in a homicide suspect lineup because he caught his ops slipping and lined them up. He goes on to say quite literally that the cops say he pulled up and started shooting, seemingly in reference to the 2 big drive-by shootings committed against No Limit in 2012. He says his crew don't leave witnesses, and he raps that he leaves his ops on the news and makes them famous. But it wasn't just music being uploaded to YouTube by KTS members. They also begun dropping hood vlogs called On the Lake, showing the behind-the-scenes life on their block and attempting to show maximum disrespect to the ops.
Gotti block, my young niggas got a lot of options. Say fuck rock. We out here, man. Cut those, man. Pocket. You hear me? From the pocket to the ward to the lake, man. We out here, man. Doing shit in my touring fit with the Mac out like who the hit? Oh, don't be surprised if them cut those kill ya. The lake, the pocket, 75th. Don't go Gotti. Don't go Gotti. Don't go Rock. Don't go Fazo. Fuck the pop stizzle. Fuck y'all know, shorty. Man down in Terror Town. It's a man down in Terror Town. Hey, fuck Fazo. Fuck Lil Wet. Fuck all y'all dead homies. 2T killer. Fuck the niggas 2 times, man. That 5 wild out, man. Fuck niggas, man. Fuck Rock. Fuck all of them.
Fuck talking about. Fuck Ryder.
No, fuck Fazo.
Fuck Fazo.
Fuck him.
Fuck Chico. Fearro. Fuck them all.
Hey, my nigga McMaxx and Posto. Them 2 niggas y'all don't want to see together, man. Bibby.
But it wasn't just hood vlogs going up on the KTS YouTube channel, because KTS Dre and Von were also known to record themselves going into the ops hoods and pressuring local rivals. They would call these videos their No Lacking series. I assume a play on words against No Limit, recording several clips showing their followers that they were lurking on the No Limit block with their enemies nowhere to be found. They would continue to film passing cars, pondering whether there were ops inside them that were too scared to jump out.
Let me see what it say now. What the essence sign there, folks? This they blue camera.
Definitely not our shit.
Definitely McDonalds right there. It's early. Who this is? 2-4. Let me see my shot. Let me see. This 2-4.
Flexing on their ass, man. What's up, man?
Oh, say knife for asses. Niggas in trucks riding past. Look at them guys in that right truck. They see us. Oh, y'all know what it is, boy. He come out here, they ass ain't out here. It's dry as hell out here. Look at my shawties. Ooh,
where them niggas at?
They was out here somewhere. Look at this shit. They write shit like this on the wall. That's what they write on their walls. They little ass don't be on shit, boy. We be out here. It's late, now niggas ain't out here. It's not 5 in the morning. It's not 5 in the morning. It's not no shit like that. It's 10 o'clock. Gee, where the fuck is all that? And I seen some of you niggas just ride past in them cars. I don't know if that was you or not, Lil Herb. Your ass was in one of them cars, man.
Choice in the alley.
Well,
you just walking out that way.
Fat his ass up too. First thing he do. Niggas hitting alleys and shit. Ain't no motherfucker worried about that shit. All y'all gotta do is start blowing. Hey, I ain't gonna stunt, G. I ain't gonna stunt. If you check the stats, folks, we been fucking niggas up, but we ain't gonna talk about that. Somebody been fucking y'all up down here, boy. We just 2T killing. We ain't fucking around. And we finna, hey, matter of fact, I got a mixtape coming out, folks, called 2T Killer, folks. Called No Love. And ain't no motherfucker got shot in our hood in like 2 years. We gonna keep it real. Nigga ain't got shot from the lake in like 2 years. Nigga ain't been skint or none of that shit. Y'all straight cowards, man. Why y'all block so damn dry, man? We out here scattered though. Y'all ain't get no money. Y'all take all them fake ass videos and fake ass pictures. We definitely out here. There ain't a lot of us either. Y'all be like 50 deep. The niggas riding past looking. Ain't nobody popped out, chat. Ain't no motherfucker tried to bust a shot out the car. That's y'all favorite. On that bike, I don't know if it is. Line his ass up though, and I'm getting on camera. We gonna sell this shit to World Star Hip Hop. Cause them niggas that be getting shot. How we had a 24-hour spot, Zen? We be here all night and don't nobody never shoot this motherfucker up, and I look like a car full of y'all. I swear to God, that's some of you Vicks. I don't know which ones, but look, we banging at the car though, and the car never come back. Look at it stop on Kingston and never come back. It's gonna keep going on Kofax on the light.
Now, after their first successful foray onto the op block, KTS members would continue the trend, filming themselves lurking for clout once more, this time attracting the attention of the local police.
Hey, so y'all know what the time it is, man. Walking in there once again. We hope a nigga pop out so we can light they whole ass up.
Back! They go to police. I ain't even gonna look at their ass. Y'all see them. Fuck is it talking about?
They watching the shit out of us.
Watch TV, fuck. They instantly hop on us. We ain't doing shit.
We ain't know nothing, man.
Town already famous. Damn, goddammit.
They threw him, boy. It was the police, boy.
They got the laws out here. Helicopters where he at?
But despite the police presence, they would continue lurking, showing off the empty streets nearby and claiming this block as their own. They would also show the time on a flip phone to prove that they had indeed visited the op block at a reasonable time.
I was only seeing one person like they were walking that way. Me and Big Bro, man, real niggas do real things, man.
Hey, y'all know what it is, man. Me and my little brothers, he real sis. You see him, you gonna see me, man. You bullets, you gonna see slugs. Oh, let me get the time for you, people.
Hold on, wait, get the time.
It's 8.
Hold on, let me get the 8:33.
And we up to now, my nigga.
8:33 out here, man. Niggas scared white bitches in the car. Niggas ain't no shit, man. Damn, dry as hell. That's one of the folks. That was one of the folks in that car just too fast throwing up the race. I don't know, you gotta know one of us, he throwing up the race. Too many niggas throwing up the race at me.
What's going on? Hold on, get him on camera. You want what? What part of the city is this? Terrytown?
Hey, what this type of town?
Yes, come here, man. Fuck with us. This Terrytown? Yes, it is. Right here?
Wait.
This Terrytown. Hold on, wait, say it again.
This where we at?
You're in Terrytown.
Oh,
hey, wait. And we. Hold on.
This guy got his ear shot off yesterday.
In Terrytown?
Yes.
On Assets?
On Assets?
No, down there on Saginaw.
Now Lakeside?
On Saginaw.
Lakeside?
Come on. Come on, man.
Y'all just heard this. We from the lake, my nigga. You heard it from their own hypes on their own block, man. We is out here, man.
Them drillers is out.
Look, hey, man, shit real, man. Y'all see them stores and shit, man. This shit ain't no game, man. You hear me? Hey, man, y'all know what it is, man. Stop putting that shit up on internet and shit, man, like y'all out here, man. Real shit, man.
We gotta shoot it all the way till we get back.
I terrorize you bitches enough about myself, man. We died a nigga fuck rock block, man. I'm my little bro out here, man.
The green hat y'all be talking about, man.
Hey, just in case y'all ain't know, that is my little brother, man.
Gun
this
squirt,
shit real.
done.
He ain't playing with y'all ass, man.
No
Gun squirt. We walking the
no
line,
bang, bang, guns go
no
black,
bang,
bitch.
bang, guns go black. Fuck you talking about. Y'all just shot a fucking clock and y'all put it on Facebook, Instagram.
And then y'all ain't even out here? What the fuck?
Yeah, on this block.
What niggas gang bang like that, fuck?
Niggas gang bang like this. Look at that corner stuff. Ain't nobody out there.
Look at my young niggas.
Why y'all niggas?
Y'all probably can't even see them.
Why y'all niggas?
We gonna get close.
Oh, they coming?
Right there on that corner right there.
Oh, okay.
Niggas ain't out here, man.
Oh, you get you, little bro. What's up? Y'all get ready to fuck with shouting on all type of shit, man. You hear me? YouTube, Instagram.
Out here.
Yeah, you feel me?
Find out who pop rock. Get caught lacking, you get popped.
Gotti block.
Hell.
Gotti block. You hear me, man? We own that. This is the barber shop. They doing it over. Beauty salon. I don't know where we at. It ain't no secret we here.
Oh, Mr. Don't Go Gotti, man. I'm out here on the east. With Bodie and all.
Hey, and I'm Mr. Don't Get Rocked, man. You feel me? Oh, back. Don't get rocked, man. Don't get caught lacking out here. I just caught one of you niggas lacking the other day, man. You lucky. I ain't gonna say your name. You lucky. We from the lake, man. I thought this was the town.
Niggas ain't even outside, boy. It's 8:30.
Who ride past?
What?
No, but it's 8:30, boy. It's 8:30 and you niggas not outside, man. Come on, man. Y'all ain't got no joke. Who the fuck is this? You wanna hit somebody?
But the third installment of the KTS No Lacking video series documented possibly the most infamous moment in this feud. The night would begin with the cutthroats patrolling the block and passing GD chants back and forth.
This is Marquette. We're leaving the motherland for a couple seconds. That's all. All the GDNs on the nine walking this big go down now. They go to cutthroats. Posto, Dre, put on our that fast shit. You feel me? Leave the motherland for a couple seconds. That ain't shit. No lacking part 2. No lacking part 2. Part 3. Hold on.
What time is
Hello?
it? What time is it? Wait.
Hello?
Get the time.
Oh, you twitch. Hello?
Get my time. Yeah, man. 7:03.
7:03.
7:03, man. Come on. 7:03.
7:03, yeah.
One particular member that's walking with the group to take notice of is Posto.
Here's the Posto. Yeah, what you trying to do? Yeah, we out here. Cruising. You feel me? Posto on one fuck. No, you doing it wrong. Get it to me. I ain't gonna tell y'all who he is. Just know he back down. Fuck you, Tyler. I already know. He back down. Fuck Town.
As a group, they would walk down 79th Street until they get to the McDonald's on 2425 on East 79th.
Ain't worry about them hoe ass niggas. They size niggas up though. Niggas gonna go Gotti end up rock. Fuck the
Oh, man. You said they going in McDonald's. What happened?
And if you listen carefully, even as police sirens blare in the background, Posto seems to know that there are ops inside the McDonald's, telling those around him to get them outside so that he can pop them or blast them.
What happened? Blast him. Get him outside. Then I'm gonna pop. You got that on you? Yeah, blast him. Get him outside. Then I'm gonna pop. Yeah, blast him. Get him outside. Then I'm gonna pop.
Yeah, this us, dumbass. These them killers. These them killers, man. CT killers, right?
And so, after recording themselves walking through the front door of the McDonald's, inside they find numerous members of NLMB catching them completely off guard. The KTS crew then begin to pressure the No Limit members, with KTS Dre grabbing a 17-year-old Kyro, pinning him to a wall and telling him to say fuck Roc, his friend who recently passed away. Kyro would refuse to say this and Dre would punch him in the face. At a certain point, a McDonald's security guard working probably one of the worst jobs in Chicago attempts to usher everybody out, at which point another NLMB member named Moody comes out the bathroom with something apparently tucked into his hoodie.
What you came out turned up?
Damn, little fucking Frazier. We done. Lakeside, man. Come on, man.
I wanted some Mickey D's, bro.
Do try don't do, man. Let's go.
Hey, man, cut those KTS, man. Cut those KTS.
Once the KTS crew leave McDonald's, they would walk into the streets in a celebratory mood, with other members waiting outside, seemingly pushing for further confrontation.
We KTS. No, fuck them. We ain't
Fuck them. No. Hey, man, my niggas out here. We reckless. We out here. We reckless, bro.
Hey, what I say? Hey, what the fuck I say?
No. Shut up! Shut the fuck up, man! Stop running, boy! Fuck!
Oh, back there, drop this bitch ass. Y'all know we on.
As KTS Dre walks away from McDonald's with the camera in hand, a few individuals off screen are heard further back, closer to the No Limit members who were emerging from the McDonald's. And as Von continues to film himself walking away, people are heard off screen mentioning a gun, and a still smiling KTS Von picks up the pace and begins to jog away from the scene, with gunshots eventually being heard in the distance coming after him.
KTS niggas, we out here, we reckless. We gone, fuck is you doing? Come on, freak. We out here, man. One nigga's reckless, man. Hey, shout out to the cut those, man. Let's go free. Alright, be cool, don't slow down. Down. We gotta be. We gotta get back to the hood, man. We got tough.
Story has it, those No Limit members that were being pressured in McDonald's ran and got their hands on the nearest gun, with Posto from Lakeside apparently being shot in the arm during this off-camera confrontation. Following this incident, KTS Von would post the video to social media, with Kyro himself tweeting just how surprised he was that they still put that video up, considering how everything played out in the end. This incident, both the actual physical altercation and the disrespect of posting it online, made KTS Von the top target for No Limit members going forward. With this very confrontation confrontation, essentially sparking a years-long personal feud between the No Limit and KTS members who were there that night. And clearly this was reciprocated, with the likes of KTS Von appearing regularly on social media, still lurking outside that very McDonald's, looking for further confrontation.
Out here, man. Posto game, man. We were fast shit up. Fuck you talking about? You don't want no McDonald's, bitch. Fuck Roc. Posto game.
I'll be covering the bloody back and forths that came as the result of this incident later in the story. But one thing is certain, for better or for worse, this was a watershed moment in Chicago drill history, as is the case for other shocking moments caught on video, like the confrontations that were recorded in the lead up to Lil Jojo being killed. This moment will go down in history as one of the inciting incidents for a long and bloody war that would take place in the years that followed between these two groups of young men, who ultimately, due to petty squabbles, would escalate things to the point where multiple people on both sides would lose their lives before they were even old enough to realize just how precious life really is. And the sad fact is, following the McDonald's incident, an inevitable wave of violent attacks would play out all across Terrortown. In the months that followed KTS members confronting younger No Limit members at McDonald's, violent incidents would play out all across Terrortown. On the 29th of October 2012, the uncle of MadMaxx from No Limit, Big Los, real name Carlos Alexander, was walking outside of his home at 10:30 AM when two unknown men approached him, opening fire and fleeing on foot. He would sadly pass away, with tributes being left close to the scene of the killing. MadMaxx would go on to pay tribute to his fallen uncle on Instagram, with KTS Von rumoured to have been involved in the killing, along with another individual from Lakeside by the name of Bud. Naturally, MadMaxx would be lurking in the streets looking for revenge for this incident, and it would only take a couple of weeks for that revenge to take place, as on the 10th of November 2012, Bud, real name Anthony Bagsby, was out walking on the 2600 block of East 79th Street at about 12:55 PM. This is No Limit territory and close to the McDonald's that was featured in the No Lacking Part 3 video. The news reported that 3 to 4 men approached Bud on the street, shooting him several times and leaving him for dead. MadMaxx himself was reportedly a shooter on this hit, which appeared to be direct vengeance for the hit on his uncle. Bud would later die in hospital, with the news reporting that the deceased man was known to police to have a lengthy criminal record and gang affiliations, with local friends and family leaving behind a memorial at the scene of his murder, with some speaking to the news and sharing personal stories from their life with Bud. Following the death of his alleged fellow shooter, KTS Von would get active on social media the day after the news broke, tweeting disrespect to Fazo, Los, and Roc, and in response to tweets saying RIP Bud, No Limit members would reply mocking Bud and saying that Von is next, with No Limit Ramo making a tweet suggesting a No Limit member by the name of Cratehead was involved in the killing of Bud, suggesting that before killing Bud he had made him say that he was a Lakeside killer. The following April 1st, No Limit Kyro would tweet an April Fool's saying that Bud is still alive, hanging out in front of the store, an apparent reference to him being homeless before he passed. But the KTS members weren't discouraged by the violence. Just a day after Bud's murder, KTS Von drops a song called No Love along with a music video uploaded to his YouTube. In the track he raps that he has youngers killing for him before they're even 16 years old, as well as lines saying once again that he kills people or turns them gotty when he goes on hits. Clearly KTS Von wasn't worried about catching the attention of his ops, as he even tweeted publicly that he would be attending Bud's funeral on November the 16th, 2012. A bold move considering just how many funeral services get shot up around these parts. He would also post a tribute video with KTS Dre speaking on Bud's death to their YouTube, showing the world that they're still on their block selling drugs and making money, and suggesting that they still have young boys ready to kill.
Y'all know what it is, man. Say Knife Marquette. We out here all day, man. Right here, Say Knife Marquette, man. Say Knife Marquette, blue camera, blue sports, mics. And we getting that dough. Ain't nobody out here fucked up neither though. Nobody out here drilling like that. Boy chasing it every day, and I got packs and whatever else you niggas want, man. Come down here. Stop shooting out cars, man. My young niggas, they kill shit, man. Drumming. My young niggas be drilling, bro. Ain't no old heads out there, ain't none of that shit, man. Just me and my young niggas, man. My young niggas drilling, man. Every day on the lake, fuck. Stop shooting out cars. Stop doing drive-bys. This is not Grand Theft Auto, boy. No limit, good crack.
Moving into 2013, the war between No Limit and their many ops would continue. But fortunately, away from the streets, the young rappers in Terrortown were also making big steps towards getting their music careers going. On March the 14th, 2013, Lil Bibby drops a big street hit called How We Move featuring King Louie, a track that had lyrics painting a picture of life in Terrortown, where Bibby raps about letting his max spark on ops and turning them into track runners for dissing No Limit. But perhaps Bibby didn't even realize at the time the huge opportunity that he was creating for for himself by turning his experiences in the street into art. The top comment on that video today is somebody praising Lil Bibby for taking the opportunity to earn money in the rap game, get out the hood and invest in real estate. And as time went by, the rappers seeing success from Terrortown would realize the opportunity that they had created, taking steps to get away from the cycle of violence that had trapped them. But until their careers had truly flourished, sadly the violence would continue to play out on the streets of Terrortown. The next person to lose their life in the war would be another Lakeside affiliate by the name of D'Angelo Simmons, aka Lolo. On the 5th of April 2013, at about 6 PM, Lolo and another Lakeside member named McMain were walking down the 8000 block of South Manistee Avenue when they allegedly bumped into MadMaxx and another No Limit member, with the news reporting a gunman walking up and opening fire on Lolo, leaving him pronounced dead on the scene just an hour later. It's been claimed that MadMaxx is the one who fired the fatal shot into Lolo's chest, while the other No Limit member had allegedly shot an 18-year-old Lakeside member in the foot, with the news capturing that individual being taken away from the scene alive in an ambulance. Lakeside would later refer to their hood as Lolo World in honor of their dead friend, and in the days following the hit, Fearro would tweet about his ops not shooting and Lil Chris aka MadMaxx doing hits. No Limit Kyro would make numerous tweets disrespecting Lolo and Bud. This was apparently MadMaxx's third body in a short period of time. He was seemingly killing well-loved members from Lakeside, one after the other, and developing a fearsome reputation amongst his ops. As a result, Von and Posto were desperate for revenge, sliding on rival turf with itchy trigger fingers looking to kill anybody they found. Eventually killing a rival not from No Limit but from nearby Sircon City, an older set with a loose connection to No Limit. Fearro was a Sircon City member who had allegedly had previous beef with Pocket Town, notably dissing a deceased Pocket Town member by the name of Ronnie Moe. Real name Ronnie Arthurs, Ronnie had died in a grisly car crash whilst trying to escape a burglary in January 2013, and he was apparently beloved by KTS members too. So on the 25th of May 2013, many KTS members including Von were out looking for rivals passing through Sircon City territory near Pocket Town. Allegedly, the first person they saw was Fearro taking out the trash as his elderly father was too frail to do it. Von allegedly jumped out of the car shooting Fearro in the head 8 times, a brutal attack said to have left him near unrecognizable. And to make matters even more grisly, Fearro would be found by police under a street lamp under a blood-soaked sheet that had apparently been placed over him. Fearro would be pronounced dead at 9:30 PM in the 7300 block of South Dorchester Avenue. Fearro's family and the local community were devastated by this loss, but a while after the murder, KTS Von begun mocking Fearro on Twitter, saying that he got killed in the alley with the trash. He mocked him for getting shot in the face, frequently calling him face-fried Fearro, and subsequently even got in a public argument with Fearro's girlfriend, who said that they were going to make sure that KTS Von didn't get a funeral. Clearly KTS Von and others from Lakeside were itching to kill anyone even remotely associated with their ops. And sadly from here, things would only get worse, as going into the summer of 2013, we would see back-to-back violence between No Limit and their rivals, with things escalating even further with every week that went by. The summer of 2013 in Terrortown was as violent as they get. C-Mo from No Limit is allegedly playing an active role in the gang, hunting for ops all summer. But on June the 26th, 2013, he'd be allegedly thrown out of a store on the 7500 block of South Yates Boulevard, where story goes he was spotted by a group of BlackMobb members, which included Shootashellz. They would run up, shooting C-Mo repeatedly, with the area quickly becoming a crime scene as paramedics would rush to save C-Mo's life. But it was too late, and sadly C-Mo, real name Cortez Bailey, would be pronounced dead in hospital. According to his sister, C-Mo had even been targeted in a shooting the very night before his murder. But following the news breaking of C-Mo's death, No Limit affiliates would mourn the loss on Twitter. Kyro posted RIPs, and in the years that followed he would continue to pay tribute to his fallen friend publicly, as did Ramo, and of course Herbo, who would rap about C-Mo in numerous songs like his Computer's Freestyle, where he said that he would let off 16 gunshots for C-Mo. But the No Limit members would barely have time to mourn their loss of C-Mo before tragedy would strike once again, as only one day later the news would break of yet another No Limit death, because the same day that C-Mo was killed, Tracy Gibson Jr. would be riding in a car with friends around the 7500 block of South Merrill Avenue. At about 1:30 PM, the car passed a group of around 6 to 8 people standing on a sidewalk who recognized the group in the car and begun to open fire, with Tracy himself being shot in the head in the vehicle, with him being pronounced dead in hospital only the day after the news of C-Mo's passing. The news would report on Tracy's death, pointing out that he had been murdered just a week after his high school graduation. Herbo even would rap about being with Tracy the same night he was killed on the song Riding With It. No Limit members would go on to mourn the loss of their friend Tracy on Twitter, but despite the continued disrespect from their rivals, No Limit's opposition would soon take losses of their own. A few days later, on the 30th of June, Jordan Jefferson, a 24-year-old with alleged ties to BlackMobb, was at the Greater Metropolitan Church of Christ, where he had apparently helped the pastor carry supplies into the church, attending the service, and then leaving the church to walk to a nearby corner store. Whilst he was standing outside the store on the 2400 block of East 75th Street in South Shore, he's allegedly spotted by a crew of No Limit members, which included MadMaxx and others. That group would run up and shoot him in the head, leaving him dead at the scene, with Jordan's body being photographed by reporters whilst he was left on the street covered in a sheet whilst investigators secured the scene. Following the murder, BlackMobb members would refer to this territory as Jordan World, but meanwhile, only a week after the murder, No Limit Ramo would tweet about it, seemingly pointing to MadMaxx aka Lil Chris or Killer Chris as the shooter in recent fatal shootings. So while MadMaxx was building up his reputation of Killer Chris, the fearless shooter from No Limit with countless bodies, story has it over in BlackMobb, Shootashellz would cultivate a similar reputation, apparently driving around the No Limit strip looking to avenge Jordan with other BlackMobb members. And it was on one of these trips that they would apparently eventually spot a beloved No Limit affiliate by the name of Pistol P on July the 3rd, 2013, around 6:50 PM on the 2400 block of East 79th Street. A male gunman would hop out of the green car, shooting Pistol P in the back as he ran. Pistol P, real name Rayford Brown, collapsed on the 7900 block of South Phillips Avenue and would sadly later die in Northwestern University Medical Center. This was supposedly yet another personal vendetta, as Pistol P had allegedly been responsible for the killing of Hakeem from BlackMobb back in 2011. No Limit members would mourn the loss of their beloved friend, with Ramo tweeting that the ops had taken his shooter away, vowing to get revenge and promising in a tweet that he would send those responsible to meet Pistol P, as well as boldly telling the world around a week later that he was getting up to attend Pistol P's funeral. Herbo would even go on to name his musical project the Pistol P Project in his honor the following year, and naturally, the numerous losses on the No Limit side empowered KTS members to take to the streets once again, with another installment of the No Lackin' series being released, with members telling their ops don't get C mode.
Fuck Fearro!
Don't go rock. That's all I'm gonna tell you.
Don't go rock.
Ooh, I got history on all these.
Don't go Pee-wee. This shit crazy. Don't go C-Mo. Damn, that's a squad back there. I don't even see the squad. I don't see the squad.
They would also continue to mob through the streets, with it at least seeming as if people were running away from them.
Lacking on that east side, get whacked. Squad! Lacking, get clapped.
Cut through! Fuck Fazo! Fuck Fazo! Motherfuckers running. You running? Hey, why y'all running? Oh! Look at them running. 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 They running.
But sadly, the violence would continue on the streets of Terrortown through to the end of July. Once again, Shootashellz and other BlackMobb affiliates are sliding in Terrortown, looking for their No Limit rivals. On July the 29th, 2013, the BlackMobb shooters would allegedly pull up on 79th and Oglesby Avenue, just outside of No Limit territory. Here they would spot Richie Rich from No Limit, real name Richard Pierce, with a shooter hitting him in the head and the neck, with Richard unfortunately later being pronounced dead. The loss of Richie was mourned by MadMaxx on Instagram, as well as by Kyro, and at this point there was really no sign of the bloodshed stopping anytime soon. But the next loss the No Limit crew would suffer would come as one of the most devastating, because just over a week later, beloved NLMB member Kobe would lose his life to the streets too. Another heartbreaking loss that would once again echo through the music of Herbo for years to come. The summer of 2013 was one of the most violent summers in the history of Chicago's Terrortown. After the deaths of C-Mo, Tracy, Jordan, Pistol P, and Richie, it's hard to believe that the members on either side would get away with yet more violence. But sadly, in August 2013, one of the most beloved members of the NLMB would lose their life. On August 10th, 2013, 21-year-old Jacoby Heron, also known as Kobe, would be out enjoying a dice game with other members of No Limit like Herbo, Kyro, and more. When things at the dice game died down, the members dispersed and and headed home. Story has it that Kobe refused a ride, instead deciding to walk home through the streets of Terrortown. And unfortunately, once again, outside that very McDonald's in Terrortown, where No Limit members had been confronted by KTS members, Kobe would be caught once again by the opposition with a car pulling up and one individual opening fire, with it even being rumoured that another individual got out of the car, standing over Kobe and brutally shooting him in the head whilst he was on the ground. Kobe was found dead outside that McDonald's restaurant on the 2400 block of East 79th Street at 4:02 AM. And it's said that when the shooting went down, Herbo and Kyro heard the shots rushing with guns towards the McDonald's, but when they got there, the shooters fled. Kobe was pronounced dead at the scene, and his body was left on the streets covered by a sheet whilst investigators secured the scene, whilst officers bagged up evidence, eventually removing Kobe and hosing away a pool of blood left where he passed. Kobe was a beloved member of NLMB, and his death would hit the community hard. Following word of the incident spreading through the city, Kobe's murder would be covered extensively by the local media.
The more recent one was on 79th Street, just east of Yates. He was a 21-year-old man, shot a number of times. He was dead when police arrived, and he was out there this morning for a little bit while investigators taped off the scene and tried to talk to people. Not clear exactly what happened in that. A couple people out there said that they heard the gunshots. There was a lot of them when they found casings up and down the block. But right now, there's nobody in custody for any of these shootings overnight.
Kobe's family and friends would of course be heartbroken at the tragic loss, with G Herbo later naming his project Blick, or Ballin' Like I'm Kobe, in his memory, even putting Kobe's headstone on the cover art of the project. And during the press run for this project, G Herbo would speak with Sway on being there the night that Kobe was killed.
My homie got killed, and we was together, we was outside like 4 in the morning, just on the block chilling, shooting dice, all type of stuff. And that's my homie Jacoby, who I lost a couple blocks over, just walked off, and we heard shots going off, like a lot of shots. Kobe just walked off. We hear all them shots. So we get to the scene, and I see my homie out there dead, you know what I'm saying, laid out.
Herbo and his friends would even visit Kobe's gravesite in clips that still circulate on social media. Other No Limit members would mourn the loss of Kobe on social media. Meanwhile, the ops would be celebrating. And since the incident took place, there's been a lot of debate as to whether BlackMobb or Lakeside were responsible, with some even believing that it was members from both gangs arranging this attack on No Limit. But for the record, many years later, a Freedom of Information request on the police files around Kobe's case revealed that Shootashellz from BlackMobb was named as an official suspect in the murder. Conversely, many believe that KTS Von and Posto were responsible for the killing, particularly because soon after the murder, KTS Von released a song called Kobe, all about Kobe's death. A song that featured a very disrespectful cover art that featured a picture of Kobe with a cross over him. And in that song, KTS Von repeats over and over again that he's smoking Kobe, as well as dissing Fazo, Roc, as well as dissing G Herbo directly, saying that he will smoke Lil Herb. And Von would of course later be seen on social media saying numerous times that he's smoking on Kobe.
Kobe hit the out before the O's. I'll be smoking no limit, bros.
While the public might never definitively know who was responsible for the killing of Kobe, members from No Limit like Kyro vowed to get revenge, with Von continuing to take to Twitter, replying to No Limit members mocking Kobe. After this incident, Posto would later tweet that he kills No Limit members, with some believing this may very well be an admission of having played a role in the killing of Kobe and others. From here, No Limit members would go back and forth with trolls on Twitter who mocked their dead friends, and KTS members would continue to escalate their disrespect for the ops, eventually going as far as to have custom merch made, naming all of their murdered ops in a long list with Kobe's name at the top. And KTS Von would continue to lurk in comment sections on his ops pages, ready to diss Kobe at the first opportunity, as well as making his own posts mocking Kobe for not getting a ride the day he was killed. Naturally, the war between these two groups was reaching fever pitch, and retaliation wouldn't be far behind. In fact, G Herbo would later rap on the 2021 track Pray for My Enemies that him and his crew made the trenches bleed, and that they crushed their ops after Kobe died. And the sad truth is, in the many years that followed, the trenches would indeed bleed heavily, with young men on all sides of this war taking heavy losses, with only a few of the struggling soldiers finding a way out of the deadly cycle that continued to play out on the streets of Terrortown. After the death of their beloved friend Kobe, members of No Limit were reportedly lurking around Terrortown, looking to kill a rival in revenge. And sadly, someone would lose their life only 3 days later. On August the 13th, 2013, 34-year-old Eric Chisholm was with another man in a parking lot outside of his home on the 7400 block of South Colfax Avenue. Around 9:40 AM, a light-coloured SUV passed by and a gunman began shooting from the passenger seat. Eric was hit and sadly pronounced dead at a nearby hospital at 10:20 AM, with police describing the scene as littered with shell casings. Since this happened, many have suspected MadMaxx from No Limit as having played a role in the shooting. And following the killing, MadMaxx and other No Limit members would be lurking in the comments to remind their ops that they avenged Kobe with rapid speed. And as the year went on, other members from No Limit, like Fearro, would tweet shouting out someone on his team for dropping bodies like MadMaxx, with this perhaps being early origins for the nickname that would eventually become infamous. Despite reports that Eric had not been affiliated with gangs, this incident had been seen as revenge against BlackMobb by No Limit. However, they wouldn't stop there, because there were key members from rival gang Lakeside, which No Limit and their numerous members had a personal vendetta against. Other than KTS, Von and Dre themselves, the most wanted target for No Limit around this time would have been Posto. No Limit were desperate to get back at Posto for what some believed was the role that he had played in the killing of Kobe, as well as for his role in the No Lackin' 3 McDonalds incident. After all, Posto was known for regularly mocking his ops and Herbo on social media.
Lolo world, how they get that I ain't never heard of you things start rapping.
Posto would be hard to catch, however, because he would end up being arrested on October the 5th in a scene caught on video. Posto would be released on the 18th of November 2013, and it would only take 5 days from his release for his opposition to catch him. On November the 23rd, 2013, at around 11:05 PM, 18-year-old Posto, real name Tyshawn Anderson, would be shot in the head in a first-floor hallway in the 2700 block of East 80th Street. Someone in the building called the police after hearing 3 to 4 gunshots, finding Posto laid out on the floor bleeding from a gunshot wound. After being taken to Northwestern Hospital, Posto would unfortunately be pronounced deceased at 11:50 PM. Cops would label the killing as gang-related, and in the years that followed, rumours circulated of a 2-man masked hit squad from No Limit, which included MadMaxx, as being responsible. Others have pointed the finger at Crazy James from No Limit, with his lyrics on the song It's Real, including lyrics where he says, "Tell Posto pick his face up. This is no fairy tale, I drill. Headshots, I killed people." As a result of the hatred that No Limit members had towards Posto, following his death, members would mercilessly mock Posto on Twitter and Instagram, and in songs, with Herbo actually making numerous tracks where he says he smokes Posto, and in a semi-successful effort to turn Posto into the Tuka of the East Side, several other rappers have been heard saying that they smoke Posto on songs too, with one of those people once again being pop sensation JuiceWrld, who would rap that he was smoking on Posto numerous times.
Smoking on Katy Pack and Posto and Mr. the Most.
Herbo even claimed at one point to be starting a legitimate cannabis company named Posto Canna after his favourite murdered op. I'm sure the authorities were rubbing their hands together like Birdman at that one. But sadly, when it comes to Posto, the disrespect that No Limit have shown this deceased op reaches a shocking new low in Chicago drill history. Because in a since-deleted video which has been thoroughly scrubbed from the internet, we seemingly see Herbo and Lil Bibby with other No Limit members at what they claim is Posto's gravesite, where they claim somebody urinated and defecated on his headstone. For the record, this clip has been thoroughly scrubbed from YouTube in the years that followed, but it still circulates on some website, but it's probably for the best I don't put that on YouTube. Naturally, Lakeside and KTS would be devastated at the loss of Posto and the ongoing disrespect, and KTS Von would be seen on social media spinning the block eager to avenge Posto, even returning to that very cursed McDonald's that has been so central to this beef.
Out here, man. Posto game, man. We were bouncing shit up. Fuck you talking about? You don't want no McDonald's, bitch. No McDonald's. Fuck Roc. Posto game.
In early 2014, No Limit members would allegedly catch KTS Von and shooting him in the chest, but he would get away and survive, with Von apparently spending weeks in hospital, later posting a picture of his weight loss on Instagram, saying that bullet made him skinnier. Meanwhile, in 2014, MadMaxx from No Limit is allegedly arrested several times for numerous minor infractions that would end up taking him off the street for a prolonged period. This would mean that for a period of time, 2 of the most feared people in this ongoing war would be off the streets of Terrortown. This would lead to a short period of calm, and thanks thankfully, 2014 was also a notable period for the music coming out of Terrortown and taking over the Chicago drill scene. After meeting at a youth center and bonding over their shared love of the rap game, G Herbo and Lil Bibby had risen to prominence off the back of their street anthem Kill Shit, the landmark Chicago drill track that put the No Limit rappers from Terrortown firmly on the map and up there with the greats of Chicago drill like Chief Keef and Lil Reese. And while tragedy continued to strike in the streets, Herbo would continue to put his pain into music, using his art to memorialize his fallen friends. His fallen friend G Fazo was immortalized forever in the title of his first mixtape, 2013's Road to Fazoland, and his first full-length debut project, Welcome to Fazoland, which dropped on February the 17th, 2014. Also in 2014, G Herbo would get his first taste of success in the mainstream music industry, when he was featured on Nicki Minaj's underground hit Chirac, a tribute song to the violent underworld of Chicago. Nicki Minaj seems to really get into it, and on the track she even claims to be EBK or Everybody Killer. Meanwhile, Herbo's verse on the song was full of grimy references to life in Terrortown. His iconic hook on the song saw him rapping that he knows a couple guys down for a homicide, and elsewhere on the song shouting out Rock Block. Off the back of this song, Nicki Minaj would give G Herbo an enormous opportunity to perform at Summer Jam, his first chance getting up in front of thousands of fans on stage. Herbo would go on to say that it was this period that changed his life, but all of the added attention of being a poppin' rapper in the rap game wasn't without its headaches. Around this time, G Herbo would be forced to deny that NLMB was a gang, with him doing mainstream interviews with rap publications like XXL, where he would sidestep any affiliations with Chicago's criminal underworld, telling the magazine that Terrortown was a war zone growing up, but that NLMB had stood for Never Leave My Brothers. And it would make sense that G Herbo would want to distance himself from the gangs in Chicago. A mass shooting in a Terrortown laundromat on June 3rd, 2014 put the warring Black P Stones in the media spotlight once again. A gunman had allegedly walked up to a strip mall and fired into the crowd, wounding 6 people including 14 and 16-year-old boys, with a 41, 42 and 52-year-old being shot in the arms and legs, and a 27-year-old woman also being shot in the leg. Hell, this shooting was so bad a woman even injured her toe just trying to run away. The police at the time explained that they knew that this was a war between factions of the Gangster Disciples and the Black P Stones, describing this rivalry as one of the most violent in the city. Now, there wasn't any evidence linking these incidents to G Herbo or No Limit, but it's natural that his affiliations would come back to haunt him as he made a name for himself in the legitimate music industry. In fact, it seemed as if Lil Bibby had also realized that in order to make a legitimate name in the music industry, one's old gang affiliations might just become a liability. And following the success of Kill Shit, Lil Bibby's rap career flourished too. Story goes is that when Bibby was still in the streets, he was much more concerned with making money than killing ops. And this mentality seemed to translate into his music as well. His 3-installment mixtape series Free Crack alluded to themes of drug dealing and hustling that has been one of the most famous tropes of popular rappers in rap history. And Lil Bibby had an exceptional run in the rap game. And off the back of that, he eventually realized that there was much more money to be made in the boardroom than in the booth, with Bibby eventually setting his sights on bringing through the next generation of successful musicians from his city, with Bibby famously discovering Chicago rapper-singer JuiceWrld and signing him to his label in 2017. But that would be a few years away at this point. But still, it's believed that around this time, Lil Bibby was already distancing himself of the street ties from his past. And apparently this even ruffled a few feathers, because in June 2014, G Herbo would drop his song Just Bars, which features a lyric where Herb says that he will never leave his brothers, but someone else got on and forgot their homies, with Kyro from No Limit revealing many years later that Herbo was sneak dissing Bibby with this lyric, saying that Herbo was mad that Bibby left the gang behind after getting his record deal.
Bibby got signed first. Oh, he got in his feelings about some shit. He branched off on the guys. So now it's just Herb left, you know? Bibby already said he's separating himself. He on some commercial shit already. He made the song Just Bars, Sneak This Bibby.
Apparently around this time, unlike Bibby, G Herbo would remain in Terrortown, and the majority of the NLMB members felt that he was representing them in his music. And over the course of the rest of 2014, Herbo and other No Limit affiliates would drop songs referencing goings-on in the streets. On July the 6th, 2014, EBK Juvie drops Pistol Gang, a track dedicated to fallen member Pistol P, with lyrics also referencing Bud and Lolo, as well as shouting out Bibby and Herbo's mixtape titles, and even having a lyric where he says that MadMaxx will come and kill people, and saying that they will do your mans like they did Jordan. Then on August the 2014th, G Herbo drops a remix to Bobby Shmurda's Hot Boy. In the music video, Herbo is seen on the block surrounded by No Limit goons, and on the track he says a lot of incriminating things, like that he used to pop people before rap, saying G Mainski taught him to use others to do hits for him, and he says check the news, somebody went to sleep for Kobe. And in what might be yet another sneak diss towards Lil Bibby, Herbo claimed not to care about record deals. He would shout out VO Herbo and Pistol P, and as the year went on, Herbo would continue to honour his fallen friends in his projects. Of course, there was the Pistol P project in December 2014, and of course the Ballin' Like I'm Kobe mixtape dedicated to Kobe. In the years where Lil Bibby tried to step away from the streets and towards the music industry to become a legitimate entrepreneur, G Herbo seemed to take the opposite approach, proudly displaying his gang affiliations in his songs and music videos, with very little care to presenting a commercial and polished image to the music industry. And in a way this worked for him, because while Lil Bibby was burrowing behind the scenes of the rap game, trying to make a bag without it all being about him and his music, G Herbo was becoming the face of Terrortown, carving a place out for himself in the Chicago drill Mount Rushmore. But the only problem was, eventually G Herbo would need to stay away from the streets and soften up his image, if not for the money, then for survival. But the sad truth is that the killers and shooters who stood by Little Herb, while Lil Bibby supposedly left his brothers behind, would wind up being extra hurt when G Herbo ended up doing the same. And naturally, in the years that went by, more and more bloodshed in Terrortown meant that those brothers who did get left behind would only take things more and more personally. Despite the likes of G Herbo and Lil Bibby getting opportunities to make money and build careers in the music industry, the danger in Terrortown, the blocks where they came from, remained for their friends still in the streets. The violence would simply continue as their block and their gang begun to get more and more famous from drill music. The next person to lose their life in the ongoing conflict between NLMB and BlackMobb would come on the 16th of October 2014, when a BlackMobb affiliate by the name of T-Bone, real name Alexander D. Smith, was walking down the 7500 block of South Colfax Avenue accompanied by a 14-year-old boy. He'd allegedly be caught by rivals from NLMB, being shot multiple times and dying at the scene, with the young boy accompanying him also being grazed in the hit. Little is known about what happened after T-Bone was killed, but Shootashellz would later rap about the situation, suggesting that he was upset that T-Bone was never avenged. But as you know, No Limit have many ops in the city, and separate to their war with BlackMobb, they were still waging a bitter war with Lakeside and the KTS crew. Their most feared shooter, KTS Von, was the top trophy for the No Limit soldiers. Von had seemingly taken a bullet to the chest in early 2014 that took him off the streets for a significant amount of time. But going into 2015, the war between No Limit and KTS would heat up once again. Ironically, for once in this beef, each side would trade shots at each other back and forth on songs rather than in the streets. On March the 10th, 2015, Bibby and Herb dropped Kill Shit Part 2, aka Ain't Heard 'Bout You, which featured lyrics where G Herbo invited his ops to pull up on him on Essex and 79th, as well as saying he smokes Posto, and naturally, seeing as Bibby and Herb's careers had been taking off, with songs dissing dead ops, naturally once he'd recovered from his injuries, KTS Von would get back in the booth, recording some of the biggest songs of his career. On April the 10th, 2015, he drops the track Street Life, featuring a music video showing Von literally cooking crack on a trap house stove, and a chorus where Von says if he didn't kill for Posto, it wouldn't be right. He would rap that he got caught lacking when he got shot, but that every shooter isn't a killer. He also says on the song that he's smoking Kobe, and in a way, this song was a sad but true reflection on the dead-end street life that KTS Von had been born into. It came with other lyrics warning the listener that falling in the street life will have you doing awful things, like killing a friend of 10 years, or dying broke unable to fund the ongoing gang war. But it would be KTS Von's next song that would be the most famous of his career, and unfortunately, his last. On April the 29th, 2015, KTS Von releases the music video for the track Kill to Survive. The music video would feature yet more offensive merch listing their ops that they've killed, and the song's central chorus of Kill to Survive became the perfect national anthem for KTS gang members. Von would rap about literally living in the purge, and claiming to slide through Terrortown with Lakeside members, putting people in the sky while dropping fives. And following the track's release, he would be seen on social media, driving around the ops territory, blasting the song at full volume and showing off his pistol. KTS Von was beginning to make a name for himself, but so too was G Herbo, who continued releasing music referencing the war with Lakeside. On May the 31st, 2015, Herbo drops Back At It Part 3, opening his verse with lyrics about smoking Posto, Bud, Lolo, and T-Bone, as well as Scoob, who was the brother of BlackMobb member Shootashellz, who died as part of a different beef while Shellz was in jail. Herbo would also acknowledge the McDonalds Incident on this song, saying check the video because a few of the people from it like Posto are now dead. But sadly, G Herbo's lyrics would end up being much more prophetic than he realised when he recorded them, because soon the main protagonist from that No Lack in 3 video would also lose his life. Apparently on June the 22nd, KTS Von would exchange threats back and forth with a No Limit member by the name of Chopper, and the day after this exchange, on June the 23rd, 2015, KTS Von, real name Davon Davis, was standing outside an apartment on the 7500 block of Ellis Avenue. Apparently high on pills at the time, he was alone and drugged up, essentially vulnerable to any of the many ops who would desperately want to pull up and catch him lacking. At around 2:05 PM, a group of men passing by in an SUV allegedly spotted him slowing down and firing shots. KTS Von would be shot multiple times, including twice in the chest and once in the head, in what authorities expected was a drive-by where they wanted to make sure he was dead. Von was indeed later pronounced dead at the scene, and weirdly it was also reported that shortly after the shooting, another mysterious SUV came down the block where the murder had been committed, rolling down the window with the occupant of the car asking the nearby crowd if somebody else got killed, with a woman apparently replying that it was a birthday party, whilst another man nearby would hold out his fingers mimicking a gun and saying boom. KTS Von's murder would go unsolved, and whilst Von's friends and family mourned the loss of the KTS general, Big Cutthroat the Smoker himself, many theories would follow as to who was responsible for the killing. Chopper from NLMB, who had gone back and forth with Von in the comments the day before his death, would post a video online apparently right after the murder, rapping the lyrics about killing for Posto from Von's April song titled Street Life, changing the lyrics to say that he should have killed for Posto and now he's in the sky, and suggesting that all of their dead homies are now beating Von's ass.
If he ain't killed for Posto, it won't be right. He should have killed for Posto and kept his pipe. But now he up there for no business. Why your dumb ass?
And a day after Von's death, Chopper would also tweet that the ops are lacking whilst they're lurking. Despite not being formally charged in the case, NLMB Chopper would later be taken off the streets anyway, catching a murder case for killing a man who allegedly wouldn't share his blunt. Others have credited the killing of KTS Von to MadMaxx, aka C Money or Killer Chris, because only 2 days after the shooting, Max would post to his Instagram a picture of a lion with a bloody face and a caption reading "One picture, 1,000 words." And Max would also post yet another picture of him with No Limit member Mally along with the caption "Splash Brothers." In response to this, KTS Von's brother KTS Dre would even jump in the comments asking MadMaxx for his phone number, which he actually provided. Another detail that had people thinking MadMaxx was responsible was the fact that soon after the hit, MadMaxx would change his description on Instagram to call himself The Smoker, which had previously been KTS Von's nickname. This would catch on, and No Limit, Diesel and 30 Clips would end up releasing a song called Don't Get Exposed, where they claim to have took the name The Smoker from Von. And in the music video for that track, No Limit members were seen doing KTS Von's signature pose of having one hand over his mouth and another hand doing a gun sign to his head. Ever since the killing of KTS Von, No Limit members would seemingly adopt this pose en masse as a regular sign of disrespect towards Lakeside. Basically, once KTS Von died, everybody in No Limit was rejoicing. Ramo from No Limit tweeted RIP Kobe days after the murder. Chopper would continue mocking Von on his own Instagram. Ramo would point out the day following the murder that most of the ops in the No Lack in Part 3 video are now dead. No Limit jocks celebrated with social media posts honouring Kobe and mocking Von. Now, despite the mountain of examples suggesting No Limit were responsible for the killing of KTS Von, other theories have circulated painting a different picture. Some suspect that Von's killer may have actually been a rival from Sircon City, as only a few days after the killing of Von, a Sircon member by the name of Eric Turner was gunned down, with one theory suggesting that the same man who killed Von might be the same person from Sircon City who would kill Von's father, Vincent Davis Sr., which took place around a year and a month after the killing of Von. While it hasn't definitively been proven who killed Von, it's clear that his passing was the best news No Limit could have hoped for. But it's believed that after the killing of Von, KTS and Lakeside were out for blood, with a particular focus on MadMaxx. However, in this case, revenge would be out of reach, because sometime after Von's death, his brother Dre would end up being taken off the streets as a result of a gun charge, leaving some of the No Limit members free to focus on the numerous beasts in the streets, now that two of their biggest rivals from Lakeside were no longer active, with one particular member of No Limit choosing instead to take things further with music and finally distance themselves from this dangerous street activity. Despite perhaps earlier feeling Lil Bibby had gone the commercial route and left his brothers from the No Limit streets behind, as G Herbo's career progressed, he would get more and more options to take things mainstream. After his successful collab with industry heavy hitter Nicki Minaj, and a successful series of mixtapes dedicated to the friends he'd lost in the streets, on the 3rd of September 2015, Herbo would attempt to build a business around his ear for music, signing a record deal with CMG Cinematic Music Group and changing his stage name from Lil Herb to G Herbo, with the CMG founder praising his new assignment trainee and business partner for creating cinematic songs that paint a vivid picture of street life in Chicago. And as well as a record deal, Herbo would get his own subsidiary record label, which he named after his block, 150 Dream Team. And G Herbo's first release as part of this album deal would be the suitably titled song No Limit, a track where Herbo would quite literally spell out his gang affiliations as a member of the No Limit Muskegon Boys. Herbo's ability to turn street pain into cinematic rap music would continue to be praised and rewarded, and in 2016 he would continue a steady climb to the top. On January the 3rd, 2016, G Herbo and Lil Bibby dropped the music video for their new track Don't Worry. Clearly there were no signs of love lost between Herbo and Bibby at this point, who were both seeing the benefits of getting money in the music industry rather than in the streets. That track today sits at over 30 million plays on YouTube, perhaps helped by the fact that the song paints a cinematic picture of the dangerous life on Terrortown without going as far as to diss specific dead ops by name. A much more commercial friendly form of street music that would pay dividends going forward. As Herbo got more success through 2016, he would make public tweets about his dead friends believing in him, and by November he was appearing on The Breakfast Club, with Charlemagne making light of the violence in Chicago and joking from the start that Herbo's father probably killed people.
He probably killed people, so they ain't play with him.
Nah, I don't know, like, yeah, I ain't gonna lie, Pops.
But as things went on, this interview would be no joke, as Herbo opened up on the violence in Chicago being a result of the lack of leadership that the older generations of gangs in Terrortown perhaps had.
It was once upon a time where street dudes had morals and certain principles and think and move a certain way. Like, the shorties don't have guidance.
Herbo would also speak on moving out of the center of Chicago now that he'd found success in music.
I don't have a certain label where they're like, no, just keep him away from you, you feel me? Like,
but did you move out the crib? Did you move away from Chicago? Or?
I moved away from where it's going down at, you know, like the inner city, you feel me? But I'm still in Chicago. It's only two things that come with the streets. Jail or death. Every street dude know you have to take that extra step or that small sacrifice if you want to excel in life, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Herbo would say that over the last 2 years or so, he had made the conscious decision to distance himself from street activity.
When did you say, okay, let me get out of the street and really focus on my career in music?
I would say for like the past year and a half, 2 years, I just been super focused.
Herb would go on to explain that the reality of street life is much more negative than the music would make it seem, saying essentially that the streets have brought him nothing but pain over the years.
They haven't been through the situations where they lost 5 homies. You never hear nobody waiting outside your mother, your grandmother crib trying to kill you. I cried a lot of nights being in the streets. My mother crying. If I see my mother cry, that's gonna make me cry.
Right. Herbo would end 2016 with his November 24th mixtape Strictly for My Fans, earning Herbo his first small taste of chart success, with the project landing at number 8 on the Billboard US Heat Seekers chart. And he would go on to spend the majority of 2017 building on that success and working up to the release of his debut album, Humble Beast, earning Herbo his very first entry on the Billboard 200 albums chart, landing at 21. And the 2018 deluxe version of Humble Beast featured the Chicago drill anthem, Never Cared, which I would say goes down as having one of the hardest Chicago drill beats in history. Herbo was truly making his way in the music industry, with a major label behind him, a label imprint of his own, and the first of many hit records being recognized by the Billboard charts. He was finally getting the opportunity that so many who lost their lives in Terrortown would have only dreamed of. But sadly, whilst Herbo was making major moves, many were left behind in Terrortown, and the violence would only continue to escalate in Herbo's absence. Following the death of KTS Von in summer 2015, members of the No Limit gang would continue to be targeted in attacks by their various ops. Eventually, Shootashellz from BlackMobb would be released from jail after 18 months, apparently the result of a raid in a house he was staying at with a girl.
We had this little crib together, you feel me, down there on 73rd, on Phillips or whatever, and she, I don't know, I guess she was going left and she, goddamn it, called the police and got that motherfucker ready because the crib was in her name, so she gave them consent to get the crib searched or whatever, you feel me? You know, she gonna say whatever reason why she did the shit. And shit, they searched the crib. You know, they found some guns or whatever, you feel me? And you know, they found some other shit that they was able to use to pin that shit on me. So shit, I went down for that shit. I've been booked for like 18 months for that shit.
At this time, it's believed that Shootashellz was really looking to avenge his fallen brother Scoobs, whose life had been taken by another gang whilst he was inside. Allegedly, Scoobs was killed by a man named Yogi from a set called ABK in May 2014. And after his release, it's said that Shootashellz would get his revenge, allegedly catching Yogi, real name Dujuan Williams, on June the 27th, 2016, with the news reporting a 20-year-old man shot dead on the 7400 block of South Shore Drive. Shootashellz had apparently called caught Yogi and another 18-year-old man, shooting them both, with Yogi being shot in the head numerous times, later being pronounced dead in hospital. And Shootashellz would go on to rap about the killing in numerous tracks. For example, in the song Pac-Man, where him and his crew quite literally tote sniper rifles in the music video, Shootashellz would rap that he's smoking Yogi, as well as telling fans that his crew BlackMobb are friendly with Lakeside, and the Cutthroats who were also beefing No Limit during this period. Considering how disrespectful Shootashellz was getting towards No Limit in some of his songs, it's no surprise that him and G-Herbo would actually go back and forth in a lyrical exchange. G-Herbo had actually been dissing Shootashellz in his music as early as 2012, on the track My Hood, where he raps that he's not scared of BlackMobb and to tell Shooter that they're changing the name of his hood by killing his friends. Herbo would go further on his I'm a Boss freestyle, where he says if he sees Shooter he's going to shoot him, or blam the 8 as he puts it. So when Shootashellz came out of jail, he was eager to drop songs clapping back at the perceived disrespect coming from G-Herbo and No Limit. On March the 21st, 2017, Shootashellz would drop his song Godfather, where he once again mocks Yogi, saying that they smoke him, going on to infer that that killing was revenge for Scoobs, as he raps he was in jail when Scoobs died, and he couldn't say goodbye. Now it's rumoured that only 9 days after this song, Shootashellz would catch another body, with this rumoured to be his 5th murder, the 4th committed against No Limit. This being a very personal killing, the shooting of the father of Lil Wet, or Wet 'em Up from NLMB, who went by the name of Big Wet. Now the killing of Big Wet would ultimately result in a shocking retaliation that ended up killing 4 people, but we'll cover that in more detail shortly. Because at this point all you need to know is that ultimately when Shootashellz got out of jail, he was on the warpath looking to cause maximum pain and disrespect to his opposition, both in the streets and in the music. And on the 6th of April 2017, he would make a big splash with his latest diss song aimed at No Limit, titled Death of 150. This was a savage and disrespectful song aimed at his rivals, namely G-Herbo and his 150 Dream Team record label. The music video featured an armory of guns, with a Tech 9 being menacingly dangled from a string in the intro, and as the video went on, we would see an individual wearing a t-shirt of G-Herbo's 150 Dream Team record label being attacked, with the 150 shirt eventually being burned on camera at the end of the video. If anything, the lyrics of the track are even more disrespectful than the visuals, because it's wall-to-wall with disrespect aimed squarely at No Limit and G-Herbo. He would say Herbo's rapping ass don't wanna shoot, suggesting the only way Shootashellz can touch Herbo now is through music. He would rap menacingly that since G-Herbo moved out the city, Shootashellz is gonna come looking for him. He says if he catches somebody on No Limit turf on Essex and 79th, he's gonna put them on the news and have College Kid making videos about them. He says that Herbo will soon be meeting his dead friends Roc, Kobe and Fazo, even referencing Herbo's earlier mixtape Ballin' Like I'm Kobe, saying that Herbo won't be like Kobe until he's dead. He goes on to say that if he catches a No Limit member, he's going to kill them regardless of there being witnesses. He says all of the disses aimed towards him from G-Herbo's songs will get Herbo killed, and he ends the track dissing numerous No Limit members, G-Herbo, Fazo, Kobe, Vito, Simo and Pistol P. Death of 150 went crazy in the streets of Chicago, and had drill music fans picking sides between Herbo and Shootashellz. It was also the biggest song of Shootashellz's career, today sitting over 7 million views on YouTube, with his other songs tending to average in the low hundreds of thousands. This song made Shootashellz a much bigger name in the Chicago drill scene, and in an effort to capitalize off the back of this growing buzz, he would continue to release more music, and getting more and more brazen with his lyrics. On May 22nd, 2017, Shootashellz drops the song Real Ones, where he appears to admit to killing more people, with him even rapping at one point, "I'm talking my count alone, I've got a whole nick," meaning a nickel or 5 kills. It's strange to think that a person who by their own admission had allegedly killed 5 people would allow videographers to visit their block and ask them specific questions about their life in the streets. But that's what happened, and only a few days after that song released, an interview with Shootashellz would drop, where he would speak on the disses between him, G-Herbo and the No Limit crew, saying that he was essentially retaliating to Herbo's early disses on the track I'm a Boss, and saying that the beef between them two is personal.
You know, like, we've been in tour with them guys for a minute, you know, Lil Herbo, whatever them, like all them little 150 guys. You feel me? It ain't specifically Lil Herbo, it's just all of them. You feel me? I ain't singling out just him. You feel me? All of them. We in tour with the whole, all of them. You feel me? Like, when he first started rapping or whatever, you feel me? When motherfuckers were just local, he had mentioned my name in a track. This one I wasn't even really rapping like that. You know, everybody always play around with the music, but you feel me? I wasn't taking that shit too serious. You feel me? Motherfucker put me up on game. Not that y'all don't really, but that I'm a boss shit. He said some shit about me or whatever. You know, it's rap beef. Once a motherfucker mention my name, we go at it. You feel me? Because, you know, we really into it. It ain't like this just some odd motherfucker I never heard of. This motherfucker, you know, we into it. You feel me? So I mentioned them back, but it ain't really getting no recognition.
Shooter would say that too much has gone on in this beef, and that there would be no chance of him and Herbo squashing it.
You think it's like any way that situation can be solved?
Nah, I don't know, man. It been too much going on. You feel me? It's been too much going on. That shit never got down.
Shells would also explain that the war between these two groups had escalated from schoolyard fights to gunfights and full-scale gang war.
You know, a lot of shit with the Lil Herb shit. It wasn't even just Lil Herb though, you feel me? He used to go to a whole nother, like, when I was like in 6th grade, I used to go to PAL. You feel me? Then we used to be like, you know, elementary school was close by. Elementary schools used to fight. You feel me? We been always in tour with them. And as we got older, you feel me? The shit just escalated. You feel me? So you know, motherfuckers started gang banging, fist fights turned to gunshots. You feel me? Gunplay. As we got older, high school, and then motherfuckers started playing with guns. People started dying, or somebody got shot, and ain't nobody gonna let that shit go. You feel me? So once a motherfucker get hit, bloodshed, the shit, it'll never be the same.
Shootashellz would also explain that since dropping his Death of 150 diss track, his DMs are crammed with fans of No Limit telling him that he is going to be the next one to die in the war.
You feel me? You got motherfuckers, they, you know, sending me messages on Instagram telling me you gonna be the next pack. You feel me? All this extra shit, you know, fuck your dead homies, all this, just a whole bunch of goofy shit.
A few weeks after this, another interview with Shootashellz would take place, this time with Zach TV, where he would discuss the long-running beef with G Herbo, denying that he was dissing Herbo for clout on the Death of 150, and saying that the beef has been going on between them for years in the streets.
Yeah, you know, we in tour with them. You feel me? The Lil Herb guys or whatever, the No Limits, you feel me? We in tour with them, so there's a whole bunch of East Side shit going on. You feel me? I don't know too many people know what's going on. You feel me? Motherfucker, you always talking about clout chasing like I'm just trying to come out, diss the man, and you feel me, get some clout here and all that shit like that. Motherfucker been in tour. Here's the thing, like even before Herb even came around, you feel me? This was like motherfuckers in 6th grade elementary school. Motherfuckers been always fighting them niggas. But in that
so this shit been going on back in the day?
A motherfucker been fighting them since elementary school, and then as motherfuckers got in high school, the shit gonna escalate, you feel me? Then motherfuckers start playing with guns, all that shit, so I end up getting locked up again, you feel me? So I'm recently just not coming home, but you know, the shit's still on, the beef's still on. Motherfucker diss me, the shit is still busting. If you don't get no fuck cause he getting on, I ain't finna wrap that shit up.
Funnily enough, Shootashellz explained why he never dissed Lil Bibby, seemingly respecting Bibby's focus on getting money rather than dissing dead ops.
And shout out to Bibby, man. You know, he on some grown man shit, but why y'all respect him?
Yeah, I got respect for Bibby, you feel me? You know, he's doing his thing. I don't never recall hearing Bibby say shit about, he'll probably say the ops, but he don't say shit about no BlackMobb. There's no fuck such and such, no fuck this, no fuck that.
Shootashellz once again reiterated that there was so much bloodshed for the two sides to settle in this beef at this point that only the people who got rich would be the ones to escape the cycle.
Can this shit change now?
Nah.
It been a lot of bloodshed though, you feel me? Even if
bodies lost.
Even if motherfuckers had money, you feel me? A motherfucker do that rap beat shit. Who's to say that if a certain nigga from down there, you feel me? It probably, you know, certain like motherfuckers that got the money, they probably don't be on that shit trying to, you know, risk it all and got them and get locked up, all that. But it's still gonna be niggas that ain't in play that got some bread that can really stop shit. They gonna be still keeping the bullshit up. You feel me? The shit gonna keep happening, man. Motherfuckers die behind that shit. You gonna hear all his homies die. You feel me? I lost my brother to that shit, so it ain't like I could just turn my back and be like, you feel me? Fuck that shit. But if I was to get on that shit, it'd be some more like for the next generation type shit.
Okay.
Like, man, you feel me? Motherfucker gotta learn how to forgive and let shit go, because if we just keep this shit up, the shit is just gonna be a, you feel me, an everlasting cycle. Shit will keep going on and on and on.
Halfway through this conversation, Zach TV discovers Shootashellz's age, and I've got to say the answer surprised me too.
And let me guess, 29?
21.
Bro, you 21, bro?
Yeah, man.
What the fuck? How you age so quick? What the fuck going on, bro?
Man, I've been through a lot in my life, man.
Regardless of what Shootashellz or any of the gangs from this story did in the streets, there's no ignoring that a lot of the violence in Chicago is likely the result of the harsh situation that many of these young men found themselves in growing up. And as Shootashellz opens up about all the pain he went through losing relatives at such a young age, it does a lot to explain what actually caused him to become this violent person.
My OG passed when I was like 11. My pops died when I was like 9.
Then fuck around and lose your mom and dad, lose your bro of that 2014.
Bro, you lost your mother, your father, and your brother.
Yeah.
Damn,
so
shit.
That's a lot.
My condolences, bro.
To come to this shit, you feel me, all this street shit, that's a lot. A motherfucker gotta mature, you gotta mature fast, you gotta grow up, you gotta take care of yourself out here. It's all fun and games until one of your loved ones get killed, you feel me? Nobody understands shit till one of yours died, then you be like, yeah, motherfucker be mad, you wanna strike back, but at the same time, another one of your loved ones can die, so you gotta look at your loved ones every day like, man, motherfucker get their life taken to this shit.
Shootashellz was clearly dealt a difficult card in life, and unfortunately his reaction was to dish out pain to others. And despite having the wisdom of an older man as a result of growing up fast in the streets, unfortunately one of the consequences of causing so much pain to others would be that karma would eventually catch up. And sadly for Shootashellz, less than a month after that interview with Zach TV, karma would indeed come knocking, when on July the 10th, 2017, some have suggested that Shootashellz's location was given away, because as he was getting into his car, a white Nissan Altima pulled up with 3 shooters hopping out and gunning Shootashellz down in the middle of an Auburn Gresham street in broad daylight. But that wasn't the end of things, because the murder of Shootashellz is one of the most gruesome in Chicago history. Story has it, after Shootashellz was struck, he would fall to the ground, at which point numerous shooters stood over him, taking turns firing bullets into his face. In what was one of the most grisly deaths in Chicago drill history, he was shot in the face as many as 18 times, with a graphic picture of Shellz's disfigured body taken by a member of the public and posted online, which is far too graphic to show you on YouTube. Police would recover a whopping 43 shell casings at the scene. Due to the serious nature of this crime, and likely due to Shootashellz's involvement in numerous murders across the city, the FBI would be called in to work on the investigation, with the FBI allegedly filing a court order to search the content of Shootashellz's iPhone, which was found in his pocket after his death. It's unclear whether the FBI found anything of note on Shootashellz's iPhone, but what we do know as a result of police documents later posted on Reddit drill community Chiracology is that the prime suspect in the killing of Shootashellz was MadMaxx from No Limit. Numerous outlets would go on to report that MadMaxx was named as one of the shooters, with the cops apparently picking up MadMaxx a week after the killing of Shootashellz, catching him with a gun with a defaced serial number, but clearly the cops didn't have any further evidence connecting Max with the incident, and he was ultimately let go. Herbo would actually go live following the death of Shootashellz. He was with his girlfriend at the time, and she was apparently unaware of the news, finding herself surprised with just how many people had tuned in, joining the live obviously to see Herbo's reaction to the death of Shootashellz.
Damn, my shit just went up real quick. That's because it's your birthday, bro. They ass phony kicking. We trying to see what you doing, man. Y'all nosy as hell, bro. What y'all trying to see what she doing for? Comment who lie this is. Comment right now, first person. Who this is? This us or? Cause if this her shit going crazy like this, I ain't getting on my shit for a month. Y'all ass ain't gonna see me. Oh yeah, this my shit. Stop it. This man. This Swervo. 153. Shit, stop playing. This Swervo shit, boy. Stop playing.
Soon after this, Herbo would be seen running around outside in a seemingly good mood, telling viewers that he's in Chicago downtown and that it's going to take the ops 2 hours to get to him.
Hold on, wait. Oh, Vito, make a motherfucker mad as hell. Y'all good, Greg? That's a little black. That's a black. That bitch tinted enough, y'all show. Y'all want me to call him PJ? Motherfucker good. Oh, game. Hold on, wait, where I'm at? Wait, hold on. Oh, Vito, bitch. Stop playing. My shit good. I'm in the rack right now. I'm downtown. Gonna take y'all last 2 hours to get right here. You guys have to my baby on the picture. Ooh, she got the VVS dress, all VVS diamonds and that shit. What y'all want to address my next location or something, boy? How the fuck they miss a whole 100 shot? How the fuck you miss a whole 100 shots? So for them.
Eventually, Herbo would find his comments inundated with people mentioning Shootashellz, prompting Herbo to snap into a rage and telling people to get off his page.
If y'all stop commenting shit on my page, get the fuck off my page if y'all finna comment all this lame ass shit. I already know everything that's going on. Leave me the fuck alone. I don't know nothing about none of y'all. Ask the police on Vito. Get the fuck off my page with that gay ass shit. I don't know nothing about nothing. Get the fuck off my page before I don't get on live and block all y'all that.
Principal.
Get the fuck on. Leave me the fuck alone on folks. I don't know nothing about nobody, bro. Everybody broke as hell, bro. If your ass ain't rich or no limit, I don't give a fuck about you folks. Leave me the fuck alone, folks. Suck dick. I don't give a fuck about none of that shit. Get the fuck off my page. Get y'all ass goofy as hell.
However, despite getting angry at these incriminating comments, as time went on, Herbo would continue to make subtle references thought to be aimed at his former top op. In 4 Minutes of Hell Part 5, Herbo would mock Shootashellz for getting shot in the head so gruesomely, saying he never made any money and has no head left. Fellow No Limit rapper Crazy James would rap on his Never Cared remix that they're going to Shootashellz their ops. And even Lil Bibby, the one person who Shootashellz said he respected for never dissing the dead, would come out on the song Crack Baby, seeming to reference the incident with the line, "Last one to diss the gang, his brains was all sloppy." The killing of Shootashellz wasn't without consequence, however, as 13 days after his killing, an OG figure in No Limit by the name of G Slim would lose their life too. Allegedly, BlackMobb and Lakeside were responsible for the slaying, which took place place at 5:15 a.m. on the 1500 block of East 82nd Street. G Slim, real name Lavondale Noble, was shot in the neck and hand and died, while another man was shot in the face and survived, with a seemingly innocent bystander being hit in the groin and neck, IDing the shooter's vehicle as a white sedan. But regardless, with one of their biggest and most feared rivals, Shootashellz, off the streets, No Limit members might, for the time being, feel a little bit safer on their block. However, as Shootashellz said himself, the consequence of killing a rival now means that you must live in fear for losing one of your own friends or family members. And in the years that followed, the violence would continue to play out the same way. But there was one particular act of violence that a No Limit member was accused of, just before Shootashellz was killed, that may well be one of the most shocking incidents in this story, and perhaps even Chicago drill history at large. And that's the story of Lil Wet from No Limit, who allegedly killed 4 people in one night. On March the 29th, 2017, Big Wet, real name Jerry Jacobs, was walking on the sidewalk on the 7900 block of South Phillips at 11:13 p.m. when a dark vehicle approached and 4 men jumped out, shooting Jerry in the body as he tried to flee. He made it to the hospital but was pronounced dead at 3:40 a.m. on March the 30th. Following his death, the police would come out publicly to say that Big Wet was indeed a documented gang member. Big Wet was apparently an OG in No Limit, the Chicago gang that had been battling for decades for control of Terrortown, and he had apparently faced murder charges twice in the past. Some have suggested that Big Wet's killer may have been Shootashellz from BlackMobb, but for the record, others have contended this version of events. But much more shocking than the actual murder of Big Wet was actually what came next. Because less than 24 hours after the murder of his father, Big Wet, Lil Wet, aka Wet 'em Up from No Limit, would hit the streets in a fit of rage hoping to get revenge. Police would later claim that Lil Wet went into the Nadia Fish and Chicken restaurant at the corner of East 75th Street and South Coles Avenue, this being within a mile of his father's death location. Outside the restaurant was 4 men. 2 were chased into the restaurant and fatally shot in front of shocked diners, and the 2 other men attempted to run away, ultimately being chased down and fatally shot dead in 2 different nearby parking lots. And apparently 2 of the deceased men were blood brothers, visiting their mother who worked at this restaurant, with their own grandmother being seen, pictured by the news, breaking down at the scene upon discovering the tragic news, and would later appear in an interview with local news at the scene of the crime, with the distraught mother being led away from the scene in tears.
Do you have any idea what anyone wanted to do this to your family?
No, if I find out who did it, I'm gonna show ass.
We had heard maybe there was a shoot. There were shots fired inside the restaurant, then they came back.
Yeah,
out.
They were shooting at somebody. They say inside the restaurant. My boys just got in the way, I guess.
So they were shooting inside.
They got 2 bodies inside the restaurant of somebody else's kids, I imagine. They said it's 2 boys inside the restaurant. So if they got 2 bodies inside and 2 outside, oh, they just killed a whole bunch of kids up today. I just know my baby, 1 there and 1 down the street. No, they was outside. I guess they running different directions trying to get away from the shots. It's saddening to me because they got my babies out here in the rain and the water just laying on the sidewalk. I mean, cover them up or something, just open. They just laying there on the street. They've been out here for almost 4 hours. 4 hours, how do you lay a kid on the ground?
Lil Wet, real name Maurice Harris, would later be arrested by police after allegedly being identified as the shooter, being charged with all 4 murders, with the police even publicly stating his involvement in the No Limit gang as part of the Black P Stones, with the cops quickly fixating on the murder of his father Big Wet the day before as a clear motive, with the arrest for this mass shooting that claimed 4 lives even making it to the TV news, which is a rarity in Chicago where murder is so commonplace.
Well, police make an arrest in a shooting that killed 4 people in the South Shore neighborhood. The suspect lost his father to gun violence just the day before.
Police say the 2 cases are related and both are tied to gang conflicts. Tonight, 1 man is in custody, 19-year-old Maurice Harris, and investigators say he is not cooperating with them. Police say the quadruple murders outside this South Shore restaurant were a planned execution in retaliation for the murder of Maurice Harris's father, Jerry Jacobs, who, like his son, was a documented gang member.
Jerry Jacobs is murdered, then 24 hours later, his own son goes and kills 4 people. So obviously, those 2 incidents are related. 19-year-old
Maurice Harris is now being held without bail on 4 counts of first-degree murder. It is his first charge as an adult, but not his first run-in with Chicago police.
While I can't go into the specifics into his extensive juvenile history, as we've seen too many times before here in Chicago, he's no stranger to CPD. nor is he unfamiliar with using an illegal handgun.
Tonight, in the South Shore neighborhood, the Chicken and Fish restaurant is open again, even while neighborhood residents come by to see where such a violent crime occurred.
This would be a huge case, and beating it would seem impossible to Lil Wet. Funnily enough, his No Limit homie G Herbo would even rap about the situation on his song 4 Minutes of Hell, saying that his little cousin is fighting 4 bodies, and that if he beats them, he's gonna fly him out to Egypt. Perhaps Herbo thought that beating such serious charges would be impossible for his cousin. But in one of the most surprising turn of events in this story, despite police claiming to have had witnesses positively ID Lil Wet as the shooter, in June 2020, after spending over 3 years in jail awaiting trial, prosecutors would drop all charges against Lil Wet. Apparently, despite even having witnesses pick Lil Wet out in a photo array, ultimately the state's attorney found that the eyewitness accounts to be unreliable, with the cops claiming insufficient evidence to move forward with the case, with Wet's attorneys going on to say they had provided a strong alibi that apparently proved Lil Wet could not be the real shooter. After the news broke, Lil Wet would be released, being seen on social media celebrating and laughing the moment he got out.
Shut him down. Real bounty. Hey, fuck you talking about? Mayweather. Mayweather. Your shit got long, shorty. That shit long. Woo! You know we gonna be at the gate. You can turn that shit to a memory, yeah? That shit a memory. We smashing. Oh, Roc Greg. County killer, folks. Damn, damn, folks. Oh, my God. You Shorty came out long time. Tell him. Shit.
And Lil Wet would even go on to open up about beating these charges in a 16 Shot 'em interview, sporting an enormous smile and taking an enormous hit on the blunt when 16 asks him about his father being murdered.
So I want to go back to like around the time like with the situation with your father. Like, first of all, I don't say RP to your father, but you know, like when that happened, you got the news. What were you like? What was you doing?
Man, I was doing what I was doing.
He would go on to say that when he found out his dad died, everything went dark and he woke up being charged with 4 murders.
Everything just went dark. Like, it was just, it's hard to explain. Like, everything just went dark.
What time was you facing?
Shit, I was facing shit like hell, life. I was nothing else. Hell.
Ultimately, Wet would say that the cops' case was based entirely on gossip, suggesting that they had rushed the case.
I actually beat the case, shit, the lack of evidence. The lack of evidence, they rushed their case too fast, and shit, when it all came out, the truth came out, shit, they rushed their case too fast. The lack of evidence.
So what evidence was they using, or was it just like some type of...
He say, she say, you know how the streets just talk.
It's also worth noting that according to NBC News, Lil Wet and his family had apparently previously filed a lawsuit against Chicago police in relation to an illegal strip search that was carried out when Lil Wet was just a minor.
But NBC5 has confirmed that last year Harris's family filed a federal lawsuit against the department related to an alleged incident involving a strip search by 2 off-duty Chicago police officers when Harris was just 14 years old. One officer involved has since left the force. The department is not commenting on that case.
Ultimately, despite claims of an open and shut case, Chicago police would drop all the charges and Lil Wet would be a free man once again. Now, for the record, many believe that there is perhaps much more to the story, and if police truly didn't have enough evidence to convict Lil Wet, then surely someone else must have done the crime. But regardless of who you believe was truly responsible, Lil Wet would return home free of any consequence at all. And naturally, off the back of the sheer scale of the crime that he was accused of, he would become a mythical figure in the history of No Limit, with endless speculation over whether or not he was responsible for these 4 brutal murders. But unfortunately for No Limit, while Lil Wet was in jail, they would end up losing another one of their members, the one possibly with the most feared reputation of all, MadMaxx. With the war raging between No Limit and their various ops from Lakeside, BlackMobb and Pockettown, it was only inevitable that eventually the most feared and famous members of the gang would eventually lose their lives too. Around a year after the murder of Shootashellz, one of the most feared hitters from BlackMobb, MadMaxx aka C-Money aka Killer Chris, who had allegedly played a role in an incomprehensible amount of killings, as many as 13 by some estimates, would end up this time on the other side of the gun, losing his own life. On August 3rd, 2018, MadMaxx is located by his enemies, whilst moving into his mother's apartment around 3 PM on the 7600 block of South Kingston. Here he's chased down and shot once in the body and once in the arm. He was found slumped in the courtyard of an apartment complex and taken to hospital, with the news initially reporting simply that a man had been shot in the arm. The news would describe his situation in the hospital as stable, but sadly he was far from it. MadMaxx, real name Christopher Jackson, would fight for his life in hospital for exactly a month, eventually being pronounced dead on the 3rd of September. But to make matters even more crazy, after his death the police would claim that a heavily medicated MadMaxx would give a videotaped deathbed confession naming his killer as Hell-Rel, real name Terrell Webb, a senior member from Lakeside, with a screenshot of the supposed recorded confession later being circulated by Hell-Rel himself, who would label Max as a snitch. However, the cops also claimed to have another cooperating witness and surveillance footage pinning the crime on Rel. And based on their suspicions, cops would initially arrest Hell-Rel, catching him with a gun that matched the shell casings found at the scene of Max's murder. But for some reason, he was released without charge at the time, perhaps because MadMaxx was still alive at that point. But then, 11 days after the killing, an attempted murder warrant was issued, and Hell-Rel would flee, eventually being tracked down in Iowa and arrested on August the 28th, being held in custody for a few days until MadMaxx died in hospital and the charges were upgraded to full-blown murder. And a video would even circulate online showing Hell-Rel react in the interview room the moment detectives told him that his charges would be upgraded to murder.
Was done on a gunshot residue kit was done on you?
Yes, sir.
Ballistics test was done on the gun and the recovered shell casing from the scene. Since then, we've gotten all those results back.
Yes, sir.
Also, since then, little Chris has died on September 3rd. So now this has become a homicide investigation. So, Detective Carlson here is going to read you your Miranda rights.
For the gun or
for a homicide, you said?
Yeah, this is now a homicide investigation.
So, we'll read your rights.
Hold on.
You want a second?
Hold on.
Well, before we talk to you, say anything, I need to read you your Miranda rights.
Okay.
Terrell Webb would face murder charges for the killing of Chris Jackson, with the case even being discussed on CBS News as the killing of MadMaxx had taken place on Chicago's deadliest weekend of 2018.
Nearly 2 months, but Chicago police have filed their first murder charge stemming from the deadliest weekend Chicago has seen this year. 27-year-old Terrell Webb is accused of shooting and killing a rival gang member. He was charged after a deathbed statement from the victim. It was one of more than a dozen murders the first weekend in August.
Hell-Rel would post on social media from jail expressing his frustration at facing 45 to life as a result of being snitched on by a man who had supposedly killed many people. He would eventually share messages suggesting that his lawyer has the tape of MadMaxx confessing and that he would eventually reveal it to the world. But Hell-Rel would also eventually be released, with the police citing a lack of evidence, much to the delight of surviving KTS members who circulated a statement from Hell-Rel branding MadMaxx as a snitch. Hell-Rel would also diss MadMaxx on Instagram, showing off a t-shirt reading 150K and a picture of Max holding money, with a caption saying that's the last time he'll touch any money. With this t-shirt apparently being made specially for the music video for his song Self-Explanatory, where he naturally dissed MadMaxx extensively. And eventually Hell-Rel himself would even elaborate on the situation in detail in an extended interview with Chris Barnes, saying that he's innocent and that he believed racism played a role in him being accused.
I ain't do that shit to blood, man. For real, I'm finna take some time on that shit. Not cause I didn't do it. I mean, for however much anybody want me to have done it. But I'm a black man, I done been locked up several times, man. I know I ain't do it. I know I could beat the shit. Yeah, I know I could beat the shit, but it's still, I'm scared. I'm a young black nigga, you know what I'm saying? And then every time you pick the jury or the judge always white, no matter what, you know what I'm saying? That's against me. Then you pick a jury, they always white or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So it just, the probability, I don't like the probability. I ain't my, you know what I'm saying? And Even though I ain't do it, like, you know, God got me, man.
In the end, Hellrell would end up being sentenced to 10 years for involuntary manslaughter in the case of MadMaxx. Either way you look at it, No Limit's top killer had been taken out of action. This was a devastating loss, and surviving No Limit members would mourn Max's death incredibly hard. Herbo and other affiliates were seen at his funeral, shedding a tear as they saw off their No Limit brother, and posing for pictures in front of his headstone. In fact, several people would do the KTS pose with a hand over their mouth and gun fingers to their head next to Max's grave, an apparent reference to Max having allegedly played a role in killing KTS VOD. After his death, various No Limit members posted on social media memorializing the loss of MadMaxx, as well as bragging about the many murders that he had supposedly committed. And following his funeral, No Limit members even paid for a plane to fly over Terrortown, holding a banner that says "C Money, NLMB for life." Herbo would later release a song called "Standing in the Rain, MadMaxx," dedicated to his friend, as well as other songs where Herbo appeared to brag about the sheer number of kills that MadMaxx had racked up in the streets. But naturally, many on the opposite side of the beef in Terrortown were delighted at the news that No Limit had lost their most feared shooter. KTS members continued to drop disrespectful songs like KTS Prince, who released the track Cappin' while MadMaxx was still in the hospital, a music video that included a sequence where they counted down from 150 for each dead op No Limit had lost. Lil Don from KTS did an IG live mocking MadMaxx after he died, but he also admitted that everyone from the other side was scared of Max because of how many people he'd allegedly killed.
That nigga a rat. Y'all talking about Max. Don't get me started on my boy, folks. That nigga told. That nigga dead and gone. And he told. That nigga was doing all that shit out here and you told on the nigga, boy. You getting up on all these niggas, a motherfucker get up on that ass and you tell. But Max was alive for when we was getting it on, like, you know, when shit like that was popping off back then. It's tough. Like, you know, them tough niggas, folk, just think they too damn tough. Oh, I could kill anybody, folk. Them be the main ones dying, folk. And look what happened to him. And look what he did. He told on the nigga, folks.
Sadly, with MadMaxx gone, No Limit members would continue to see even more of their friends lose their lives. And in one of the most tragic and unexpected turns in this story, one of the most talented people to ever enter No Limit's orbit would soon lose their life too, under tragic and suspicious circumstances. By 2016, Lil Bibby had already had an exceptional solo career. His Free Crack mixtape series had cemented him as a Chicago drill legend. Tracks like Can't Trust a Soul, You Ain't Gang, and Thought It Was a Drought racked up millions of YouTube views and streams. Everything seemed like it was going in the right direction for Lil Bibby as a rapper. But even before dropping a debut album, in 2017, he would abruptly retire from the rap game, quitting recording himself for the foreseeable future, choosing instead to go the executive route. And Bibby would later reveal in a DJ Vlad interview that the financial instability of the rap game pushed him to move into the industry to make more money. And he would later tell XXL that he went broke doing music as a rapper, at which point he decided to get to the money his own way on the business side of rap.
I kind of took a little time off from music. I went broke before, Vanessa, and I took some time off like, okay, I need to learn what to do with money. I'm young, I got a great ear, great eye for talent, and I don't need these old people telling me what to do and how to do it.
So, Bibby worked out that the real money wasn't in being a rapper, but the behind-the-scenes business of the record labels themselves who would find and support rappers. But Bibby would need a vehicle to get to this money, and so alongside his brother G-Money, founding the record label Grade A Productions, with Bibby and G-Money having a phenomenal stroke of luck, with the first artist they discovered being future emo rap sensation JuiceWrld. With G-Money apparently playing to Bibby, Juice's early track All Girls Are the Same, which piqued his interest, but apparently when Bibby heard JuiceWrld's flagship hit Lucid Dreams, he knew immediately that this was the best song that he had heard in 10 years.
My brother, he brought Juice to me, and he played me the song All Girls the Same, and I was like, all right, that's a good song. And then he sent over some YouTube links and I heard Lucid Dreams. When I heard Lucid Dreams, I'm like, oh, now this is like probably the best song that I heard in about 10 years. So that's when I really knew, and I kind of like, okay, we gotta go.
Story goes that once Bibby got involved in his career, JuiceWrld went straight to the top, with a Lyrical Lemonade music video for Lucid Dreams quickly blowing JuiceWrld up to superstar status. And so after bringing Juice into the fold of his own record label and getting his career going, Bibby would apparently oversee JuiceWrld, signing a bigger deal to the major major record label Interscope in a huge $3 million deal. Bibby would go on to play a role in the creation and release of JuiceWrld's debut album, Goodbye and Good Riddance, releasing in May 2018, and his follow-up Death Race for Love, which came out in March 2019. It would seem that Bibby would fiercely defend JuiceWrld and his legacy at all costs. In fact, Bibby was even once seen pressuring a man who he caught selling fake JuiceWrld merch on the street.
How much? 20. Let me see. Let me see. Let me see it, man. What the fuck? Chill, goofy. Come here, man. Come here. How many more you got? Come here. Oh, goofy,
And according to Bibby, throughout his career, Juice was loyal to him and remained close.
Yeah, he was with me, you know, because everything I put together, everything that I said was gonna happen. Bro, it happened.
Starting to happen, yeah.
But it wasn't just Bibby that Juice would get close to. Over the course of his rise and run at the top of the rap game, JuiceWrld would be seen regularly with gang-tied No Limit street legends like Herbo and Kyro. No Limit members would even take JuiceWrld to the gun range to work on his shooting skills, with these antics being streamed live on social media and people jumping in the comments to say that Juice's gun is about to turn somebody into Shootashellz.
Juice, you finna shoot the K? Damn, folks, you going one-handed? You think you a pro? Yeah. Let me get back. One hand back.
So, despite not growing up in Terrortown, JuiceWrld would spend a lot of time with Lil Bibby and other No Limit members, eventually taking on behaviours and habits associated with membership of the gang, like throwing up the GDK hand sign, merching things on Vito, and rapping that he was smoking on Posto, the young Lakeside member that was murdered in the war with No Limit.
Smoking on Katie Peck and Posto and Mr. the Most.
At a certain point, JuiceWrld's close ties with the No Limit gangsters from Chicago eventually had other street rappers like Kodak Black hitting him up on FaceTime asking him to elaborate on his affiliations, with Juice hanging up real quick.
I'm zooling.
Where you at?
Hey, where you at with the gang? I'm down there from the seats. Where you at? Lock in the stew.
You know, I stay in Calabasas. I ain't gonna lie. You know, everything we do, that shit. I ain't gonna lie, bitch. You hear me?
I'm all you on your rich shit. That suburban shit. Still a street nigga.
I ain't gonna lie, bitch. You damn near should have did that album with me, but I ain't sweating it. I don't care who you do an album with.
Man, it ain't too late, man. You already know we gonna make some.
I ain't gonna lie, just off the songs that we got together, I'm like, man, what the fuck? Who is this nigga? Why the fuck he sounds so good with me?
Man, we'll be on some 10 times platinum shit, fucking them crackers up. You already know how we coming, man.
I'm saying what you game. I ain't gonna lie. What's No Limit 150? What that is?
Get this number, man. Get this number.
On cheap shit, 150. That's some overeat.
Sadly, despite JuiceWrld not living the dangerous gang lifestyle that would end the lives of so many No Limit members early, Juice too would end up losing his life at an early age, but for unrelated reasons. As on the 8th of December 2019, JuiceWrld and his entourage are flying on a private G5 jet from Los Angeles back to Chicago. And this entourage includes Kyro from No Limit, who is seen with others on the jet throwing up the L's. However, trouble would soon call when the plane landed, after the authorities were tipped off about drugs and guns on the plane. Once at Chicago's Medway Airport, Juice's videographer would be caught with a gun in his camera bag, while another 2 more guns were found on the plane, with high-capacity magazines and metal-piercing bullets, and a K9 unit would eventually be deployed, leading officers to drugs in the luggage, with a whopping total of 41 vacuum-sealed bags full of cannabis being recovered, along with 6 bottles of liquid codeine cough syrup. However, the drugs and guns under the plane would be the least of their worries, because after getting off the plane, JuiceWrld, who famously had a long-running addiction to prescription pills, would begin having a seizure with blood coming out of his nose. He was given Narcan by police, but unfortunately he couldn't be saved, with JuiceWrld later being pronounced dead at hospital at 3:14 AM. His cause of death was later reported as accidental oxycodone and codeine toxicity, but as to the other drugs found on the plane, it's believed that the police were unable to link the weed to anyone specifically, and ultimately nobody ended up being charged in what appeared to be quite plainly a large interstate drug smuggling operation. This was yet another devastating loss for No Limit, and its members would publicly mourn JuiceWrld. Herbo would later call him the greatest artist to ever live, and Kyro would post, thanking JuiceWrld for everything he'd done for him, and saying that JuiceWrld was the first person who ever took him on a private plane. For the record, there's been a lot of speculation online as to whether JuiceWrld's close ties with No Limit gang members may have been the very reason that his private jet was being used to smuggle large amounts of drugs across state lines. After all, the cops that were waiting for him at the runway were apparently from the city's gang unit, and apparently only 6 days after JuiceWrld's death, it was reported that the FBI had visited Chicago in relation to the investigation into Shootashellz JuiceWrld's death. Ultimately, we'll probably never really know the true degree to which JuiceWrld's affiliations with Chicago gangs contributed to his unfortunate passing. But one thing we do know for sure is that he became yet another loss for the surviving No Limit members to carry. And ironically, making more music about the pain experienced in those very streets would be exactly what G Herbo needed to take his career to the next level, as he would go on to release some of the most poignant music he had ever made. G Herbo had been going through a lot over these years. While the No Limit soldiers went through some of the hardest battles on the streets, G Herbo had become a successful rapper, moving far away from the violence of the inner city and constant danger of Terrortown gang wars. But that doesn't mean he didn't continue to struggle with the ups and downs of personal life. And clearly living in constant fear of deadly attack from gang rivals would lead him and his inner circle to continue taking risks. And unfortunately, he would face the consequences of taking those risks. On the 22nd of February 2018, G Herbo was arrested alongside two other people after their limo driver tipped off the police to the fact that the passengers had illegal firearms. At about 10:30 p.m, police would pull over the limo in the first block of East Roosevelt Road in the South Loop neighborhood. Officers would find a Glock under the seat of one of the members of the entourage, with another man being found with a gym bag containing a loaded pistol and 21 rounds in a magazine. But to make matters even worse, police officers claimed to have observed G Herbo placing a gun in the seat pocket directly in front of him, with that gun found to have contained an extended clip with 30 rounds of body armor piercing bullets. In court, Herbo's lawyer pleaded with the judge that he has no violent background, no prior arrests, and a fiancée that's 8 months pregnant. Herbo would ultimately be charged with aggravated unlawful use of a weapon, being released on $25,000 bail. Herbo would later strike a deal with prosecutors, pleading guilty to 1 count of misdemeanor carrying a firearm, winding up with a sentence of just 2 years probation and a $494 fine. Herbo would later elaborate on his mindset during this period, telling Adam 22 of No Jumper that you can't expect people not to carry guns when they live in constant fear of being robbed and killed.
And I might get killed for having on a nice hoodie, a nice jacket. So if I got a gun, I ain't supposed to protect myself. I'm a bad guy, I'm a thug, I'm a gangster now. But this the life that we brought up to. And then I can't blame the person who trying to rob me for my $1,000 coat, cause he can't get a job. The 30 kept me alive, you know what I'm saying? I love Chicago, I love my 30. When I got arrested for that gun, you know, people, the police and a lot of people, like, they was upset. Like, some police out to get me or whatever wanted me to be in that situation. Some people was upset that I even put myself in that situation because they knew I had to be in that situation. They know what we up against in Chicago, and they know why people got to carry firearms to protect themselves. So they like, damn, you let them people trick you. And you supposed to hire armed security, because they ain't saying nothing about me not having a gun. They know I'm supposed to have a gun on me. They know somebody will try to kill me. They know somebody will try to rob me. They know what I'm up against.
Herbo makes a good point, and it really shows the difficult situation that he was in after becoming so successful and getting away of the violence in Terrortown. And fortunately, moving on from that charge, Herbo's career would go from strength to strength. The collaborative album Swervo with producer Southside landed him at number 15 on the charts, with that being followed by a sequel called Still Swervin', which charted at number 41. Even if things were good on the charts, sadly, all wasn't sweet in Herbo's household. And after settling that gun charge and putting that firmly behind him, in 2019, Herbo would be embroiled in yet another scandal, this time for accusations of domestic violence. On April the 12th, 2019, footage would surface claiming to depict a physical altercation between G Herbo and the mother of his child, Ari Fletcher, at their son's birthday party. Apparently earlier in the evening, things had seemed friendly between the two, but later footage appeared to depict a much more heated altercation outside, with Fletcher appearing to assault Herbo. Herbo would later claim that Ari Fletcher had actually stolen a large amount of his jewelry.
Man, this bitch took my fucking jewelry. Bitch, you had my jewelry since your son's 6 fucking month party at my mama's house. You stole it out my mama room. I've been quiet all this time. I ain't do no insurance claim. Try to get you locked up, nothing. You told me to come to Atlanta to get my jewelry back, you lame ass bitch. You still got 300,000 worth of shit. You got all my Cubans. No, she got 300, dude. My chains.
A week after the birthday party incident, news would surface that G Herbo had actually been arrested for battery after Fletcher accused him of beating her in front of their child. Ari Fletcher would take to social media detailing her claims of abuse at the hands of G Herbo, saying he kicked down the door, had his child taken away in a car by a friend, and proceeded to trash the house and beat her severely. With Herbo's dramatic arrest on April the 17th, 2019, captured on police body cam video, later being released to the public.
What's going on?
My baby father.
Where is he?
He lives up for my son.
On foot? Car?
No, he in there in a white Tahoe truck.
Could you? I'm finna talk to you. Just
Okay,
tell
give me
her.
my
Give me the child. So what's going on? I can't. No problem.
He beat the fuck out of me. That's clear as day. My ass hurting and black. I'm beat the fuck up. Ain't no detain to win. His ass going to jail. It's over with, bitch. You done. Stupid. And bitch, I'm slapping your fat ass too for driving off in the car with my son.
Come on, go inside.
Y'all know not to play with me. Was he driving?
How'd you get all those?
Because he dragged me. He punched me in my eye. That's why my fucking happened to be black. He spit on me. Anything, the fucking worst shit you could think of, he just did to me.
What the fuck do she want from me, bro? We with different people every day. If you want to get stuff back from her at this point, you need to go to court, take her to court. Trying to fight wild. She wild as hell.
I know how.
She hit her own stupid ass eye, pulling out knives and shit while I'm holding my son. I just had to run out. Literally, she charged at me with a knife while I got your son in my hand.
Huh? Did you see the handgun? He had a massive handgun in the back of his back. Yeah, so I don't know if they pulled it out already. We got the call about it, about the gun, so yeah.
On January the 6th, 2020, G Herbo would plead guilty to the charge of misdemeanor battery, with him being sentenced to 12 months probation, 150 hours of community service, and a family violence intervention course. But at least Herbo had accepted the situation, and in 2020, he would be attempting to move forward as a better man and better rapper. On February the 28th, 2020, he'd release his 5th album, PTSD. The project was themed around the pain and trauma that he had experienced in the streets, with a poignant cover art depicting Herbo holding a blood-soaked and bullet-holed American flag with the stars replaced by faces of friends he had sadly lost. And Herbo would explain to Hip Hop DX that this introspective album was inspired by his own experiences receiving court-ordered therapy following his 2018 arrest, with him eventually being clinically diagnosed as having PTSD, a result of all of the trauma he had witnessed and experienced in the streets. PTSD, the album, was an enormous success for G Herbo, peaking at number 7 on the Billboard 200, his best album performance to date and his first top 10, with the lead single from the album also called PTSD, a star-studded cut featuring the likes of Chance the Rapper, Lil Uzi Vert, and a posthumous appearance from JuiceWrld, would earn Herbo his first Billboard entry for a single song on the Hot 100 charts, coming in at number 38. And in a further commitment to the themes of self-reflection on this album, in July 2020, Herbo would announce that he was launching an initiative called Swerving Through Stress, aiming to help young black people access therapy. Clearly, Herbo was learning from his past, and the self-reflection of therapy appeared to be a positive influence on his life. But likely another positive aspect was distancing himself from the people and situations that had brought about all this trauma to begin with Herbo later telling Adam 22 that he had to cut people off and distance himself from those people to get away from the streets, suggesting that he is just too tempted to get involved when they phone him looking for help, so he just stopped answering.
There's a lot of people are kind of stuck in this like prison of who they're around, and they feel like they can't break away from that.
I didn't get into my best of friends when I wasn't in the streets, because I'm loyal to a fault. A phone call, just something as simple as a phone call, could pull me right back into that environment. So I had to cut ties completely. Right. You know how hard that was for me.
Despite Herbo's claims of improving his inner circle, this wouldn't end up being completely successful. And by the end of 2020, he would find himself in legal hot water once again. Apparently, the direct result of the company he was keeping. Because in December 2020, G Herbo was charged as part of a $1.5 million fraud scheme, with him and 5 members of his entourage accused of using stolen credit cards and IDs to fund a luxurious lifestyle, including spending on private jets, expensive vacation, and even the purchase of designer puppies, apparently totaling a theft of $1.5 million over the course of 4 years. Herbo would be charged with 14 counts of aggravated identity theft and conspiracy to commit wire fraud. But from there, matters would only get worse, as in May 2021, Herbo would be charged with additional counts of making false statements to a federal agent, with Herbo allegedly lying, saying that he didn't know promoter Antonio Strong, despite evidence allegedly proving that Strong had paid for multiple private flights, luxury hotels, and exotic car rentals as part of the fraud. For the record, G Herbo has pled not guilty to these charges in mid-2021, and despite things not looking good, this situation is still unresolved. Herbo would appear to deny being fraudulent in lyrics on his song Statement, a song that actually came from his latest full-length release, his album 25, which is a great piece of work and is crammed full of insights into the war in Terrortown, particularly his relationship and past with No Limit top shooter MadMaxx, with G Herbo rapping on the song 2 Chainz that Max was killing people and didn't know how to stop, with Herbo going on to say that now he's a millionaire, he doesn't need to kill people anymore, as well as one of my favourite songs of G Herbo's entire catalogue, Drill featuring Rowdy Rebel, where Herbo compared MadMaxx's killing ability in the streets with playing the video game Call of Duty, suggesting that MadMaxx had 50 kills. His 6th album 25 was a massive success, breaking his previous chart record for PTSD, earning Herbo his first top 5 album on the Billboard 200. Add that to the fact that at the end of 2021, Herbo would appear on the All-Star remix to the street anthem Who Wants Smoke by Nardo Wick alongside Lil Durk and 21 Savage, landing Herbo his highest entry on the Billboard Hot 100, with the song coming in at number 17. Ultimately, G Herbo did escape the streets, getting fame and fortune and the possibility of escaping the danger of Terrortown with his life intact, an outcome that so many of his friends would not be fortunate enough to have. But whilst Herbo was living it up as a successful rapper, many of those friends who he left behind would grow bitter and resentful against him for not doing more to use his newfound success to help them out. But with Herbo's help or not, one thing's for sure, back in Terrortown, there would be no respite for those gang members still left behind there, constantly battling for control of the streets and survival. And so in 2021, we would see the killing of possibly the last big name associated with this long-running war, because after years of trying, somebody would finally end up taking the life of high-profile Lakeside member KTS Dre. Back in October 2018, surviving rivals in the ongoing war in Terrortown, No Limit Kyro and KTS Dre would go live together on Instagram, beefing each other face to face for the whole world to see.
Well, let me see. He talking about cut though.
Oh, I don't know how we.
What you on,
Hey,
bro?
man. What's up, little niggas?
Stop for this money, bro. Stop. I've been. Why you steady wuffing at me, bro?
No, man, what you on, little bro, man? Why you on here capping, man, like this, man? Why you playing on here like this, man?
Kyro would ask Dre who's there with him, with Dre showing him a whole bunch of guns, causing Kyro to quickly hang up.
Hey, who was that? Who was that on the side? Hey, I'm finna hang up, folks, because you got niggas looking at me, folks. I'm finna hang up because you got niggas looking at me, folks. You got niggas looking at me, I'm finna hang up. Nah, I ain't coming like that.
No, that's because they scared.
You got niggas peep. I want to see their face. Let me see their face.
They don't want to see nothing. See what? See what?
I want to see their face.
Nothing. I don't got nothing for them to see.
Watch out, folks.
I don't got nothing.
He going to front of his shit, folks. Yeah, he up at guns. He ain't no street nigga, folks.
Kyro would go on to say that all of Dre's new people around him are new, and that he doesn't have any beef with them.
He's talking about, man, who you with? I can't even tell you all that. I would ask you who you with, but I know your ass hang with all new niggas that you trying to recruit. Them niggas straight bitches, folks. Them ain't even real ops. Them niggas ain't in tour with us, folks. They feel important right now. We don't even know they goof ass. Y'all that had somewhere.
Kyro goes on to say that KTS Dre is scared of Lil Jon, who is apparently the realist in Lakeside. Kyro then brings another No Limit member by the name of Magic into his life, with him asking who even is KTS Von whilst getting a haircut.
They on my shit tweaking, folks.
What folk know say they at?
They tripping, folks.
You already just took your way last time.
They ass tweaking, gang. I can't be fine with this. What up, niggas?
What the fuck, you getting a cut? You finna get a cut?
Yeah, bro.
Who that cutting your shit? Man, don't let that nigga fuck you up.
Kyro would go on to explain that he would rather settle things in the DMs with Dre, saying that Dre is still on house arrest and suggesting that he would beat him up.
He steady on my shit about you niggas hoes. Folks, I don't want to argue with you, folks. Can you please DM me so we can talk, folks, regularly like we always do, folks? Cause I don't want to argue with you, bro. I hate arguing with the ops. He just put up some shit talking about he on house arrest, so you just stop talking. You get off my shit.
He got that good, put his shit in the car.
There ain't no shit to good ass. I beat the fuck out of him.
Kyro would then joke that Dre is scared of the ops.
I'm finna get off this land, folks. The ops scaring me, folks. They scaring the fuck out of me.
But the whole time that Kyro was talking, Dre would be in the comments suggesting No Limit are a bunch of hoes.
Hell no. He said, no cap, y'all some hoes. Bro, we some bitches, bro. That's what you want to hear? We some bitches.
Apparently, Dre would also comment that he doesn't recognize Magic from No Limit, saying that he's a new person too, much to the amusement of Kyro.
He talking about who is Magic, what he do? Yeah.
Don't worry about who that is, man. All them new ass niggas you hang with.
Dre would reply saying that people that he's around are the original cutthroats, with Kyro eventually admitting that beefing the ops on IG is so 2014 and he's only doing it because he likes Dre.
Please say less. You putting on the show, folks, on this Instagram shit, bro. That shit ain't even what's up. That's the shit we was doing in 2014, going live with each other and shit like that. I really ain't on that no more. I just did that because I like you. I really ain't on that no more, folks, going live with the ops and shit. And doing all that goofy shit. I just did that because I still like you a little bit. We can talk regular, folks. We got too grown for that shit. It's too many police shit watching. Then something happen, they gonna be, oh, they was arguing on Instagram and all that dick sucking ass shit. There's too much police shit going on Instagram. You steady want to woof on this shit. They ain't even where it's at, bro.
In a way, Kyro was right. So much time had passed since their run-in at McDonald's, it makes you wonder why they would even still go back and forth. But of course, despite a lot of time passing, the beef between Lakeside and No Limit had continued raging, with lives continuing to be lost on both sides, and in 2019, there would be a violent exchange between members of No Limit and a terrifying set of new enemies with family ties to Lakeside called Death Row. Yes, that is an AK-47 on the right. On August the 11th, Mook, real name Malcolm Sabs from Death Row, is standing on a sidewalk on the 8600 block of South Exchange Avenue when at 1:35 AM, a group of men approached him on foot opening fire. He was struck in the head and later pronounced dead. And then the following day on August the 12th, Willie from No Limit is targeted in what appears to be a retaliatory attack. The 18-year-old, real name Willie Washington, was standing on the sidewalk at the 7800 block of South Phillips Avenue. When a car pulled up, two people jumped out, shooting him multiple times, jumping back in the vehicle and driving off. He was shot in the back of the head and the body, being pronounced dead by 8:52 AM. But much like the other senseless killings that we have seen in the Chicago gang wars, Willie's body would lay in the street for an extended period of time, during which time members of the public were able to take a picture with the grisly photo of Willie laying face down in the street circulating on social media, but I won't show you here. Sadly, the violence wasn't over yet, because only 2 days after that, apparently the cousin of MadMaxx, Magic from No Limit, the same person who had been on that FaceTime call with Kyro after he'd hung up on KTS Dre, was standing next to a car on the 7800 block of South Essex Avenue, only 1 block over from where Willie had been killed, when a dark-coloured vehicle drove by with someone inside opening fire on the group of people standing by the car. Magic, real name Kenneth Summers, would be struck in the head, later being pronounced dead in hospital. This is just one of the latest devastating losses for No Limit. Meanwhile, one of their most despised rivals, KTS Dre, would catch a charge himself, ending up in jail for a short time. But by December of 2020, he would be back home, going live on social media, telling people that he didn't want to leave the city of Chicago, and saying that he's still shooting his ops whilst fighting court cases.
Man, I ain't gonna be nowhere but in Iraq, nigga. I'm over east, nigga, Mo Block soldier, nigga. We ain't shooting from no car, we just trying to get closer, nigga. Talking about, am I in Iraq, nigga? Nigga, I just had court, nigga, in Cook County today, nigga. Fuck you talking about. Bro, you need to leave the city, unless they gonna get you.
Dre then tells his ops to come and kill him because he's tired of them threatening him.
Sooner or later. Sooner then, nigga. Sooner than later, y'all. I'm tired of this shit. Come take me out this shit, cause I can't take it no more. Y'all be pissing me off with that shit. Y'all been threatening me for 20 years, bro. It's y'all bitch ass on.
He also denied even knowing who Kyro was when somebody brought up the McDonald's video.
Explain the video of you punching Kyro. Who the fuck is Kyro, bro? Who the fuck is that? Kyro, where you from?
KTS Dre clearly had No Limit on his mind during this period. That month, he also released the song NLMBK Part 2 alongside KTS Rio, which had lyrics seemingly aimed at G Herbo, saying that he's still on the block, unlike these rappers who only act gangster. And from here, he would continue talking openly on social media about his enemies, on February 5th, 2021, going live to speak on Lil Wet from No Limit and the alleged killing of 4 men after his father's death, with KTS Dre suggesting that all of the men killed were innocent and had nothing to do with killing his father Big Wet.
Over there, only smoking, fuck No Limit, nigga. Fuck the whole No Limit, nigga. Go cry, nigga. Fuck you talking about, nigga. MadMaxx died of rat, nigga. On Vaughn, nigga. MadMaxx died of mad rat, nigga. Look it up, nigga. Fuck you talking about, nigga. It's a motherfucker fighting for their life, nigga. Charged with a dying declaration cause this bitch ass, nigga. Said a nigga name on his deathbed, nigga. Whole cow, nigga. Whole pussy. No, fuck y'all out here listening to that shit, supporting that shit. Whole pussy, whole gang, bitch. Whole gang snitching, y'all be supporting that shit. Y'all ass weird as hell. Oh yeah, Lil Wet, aha, bitch. Award your daddy, ho, nigga. Fuck you talking about? Bitch ass nigga. Came home, boy, off all them innocent ass, all that shit, all innocent people, boy. That's another thing, y'all ass be weird as hell. Them all innocent motherfuckers, man. Y'all be acting like a motherfucker that did some shit. Shut up. And the motherfucker ain't cried about none of them people. But probably they mamas, nigga.
Later that month, on February the 28th, 2021, KTS Dre goes live with Kyro once again, with Kyro accusing Dre of sneak dissing him on another page.
What up, Lil G? What's up, little girl? I see that they just sent me that page, but you want to do sneak dissing on me.
Who sneak dissing?
That you in that video, Goofy.
Man, I don't even think about niggas. You just said on the
I'm
live.
talking about that tip,
Bro,
that
it don't matter
that
what
free bed cash shit, man.
It don't matter what I say.
Why you always gotta talk over a motherfucker?
Listen,
you know we used to talk on the phone all the time.
I know, but look, you just said on live.
That's because the fans on here for you ain't gotta do all that extra.
As things go on, Kyro accuses Dre of lying about him, accusing Dre of saying all Kyro is known for is getting beaten up in McDonald's, with Kyro wanting Dre to admit that he is known for much more than that, with Dre ultimately refusing to admit that he knows Kyro for anything gangster.
I'm trying to see why you lying on me though.
Alright, tell me a lie.
They just said, you just said that that's the only shit I'm known for. I want you to stamp it on one of your homies. I ain't trying to be disrespectful, none of that shit.
I'm gonna put this on my homies on Cutthroat Gang, on the whole gang, every last one. I don't know none gangster shit, no gangster shit about you.
Why you just lie like that?
I personally don't know no gangster shit.
Dre goes on to accuse Kyro of lying about chasing Dre off the block.
You just said on live and told a nigga, let a nigga tell you ready to expose Goofy dude, man, how he be running and doing this, how he be running for y'all, how y'all used to chase him. When y'all ever chase me? Whoever chased me? Whoever chased me, bro? You from over east, fuck the internet, and the whole east side gonna hit us. Whoever chased me, nigga, on 79. Or did niggas run from me? Or did niggas run from me?
You did get chased.
Who chased me?
You chased shit before and you got your ass chased too.
I chased unlimited shit.
But listen though, you got your ass chased too and you ran a lot of times.
By who?
Stop. So you not Superman, bro. On what you never ran. On what you never ran from us, period. Stamp that. Put that on your brother. Anything you never ran from us.
Ran from
in no situations you never ran from nobody from No Limit.
Once Kyro tells Dre to swear on his brother's life that he never ran from No Limit, suddenly Dre gets agitated and begins to bring up Kyro's deceased friends.
Who you run? I said put it on your brother that you never ran from No Limit. No Limit.
Stop saying my brother. Stop saying my brother. You don't get to say you ain't.
I'm just saying. Well, I'm not.
But look, this what I'm saying. This what I'm saying.
Why you still ain't stamping yet? Why you still ain't?
You put it on Rock. I ever ran from you.
Put it on anybody that you never ran from us.
Put it on one of your homies I ever ran from you.
You ain't have to run from me.
Okay, put it on your homies I ever ran from the other nigga who got on live and said I be running from y'all all the time.
Why you going around this shit? Why you going around this shit?
Let's keep it real. I'm known for running. That's what I'm known for.
I'm just saying, why you saying you never ran from none of us, period?
Hey, look, I don't know who I ran from. You know, there's been times I'd have been on 79 for a little weird shit that happened. I probably did have to run, but not from an individual, not from you.
They would continue to go back and forth, with Dre insisting he had made No Limit run away from him unlimited times.
You ran a lot of times,
From who? I just said, have I ever ran from you? Have you ran from me before?
Hell no.
On what?
I never ran from you.
Put that shit on.
I only sent you one time.
Never ran from me.
I only sent you one time in person. And that was that day, and I ain't even run that day.
Hey, you hear me? You lucky we on live. You ain't never ran from me.
Listen.
Hey, y'all ain't all ran from me at once. Hey, look. You ain't never ran from me a lot of times in your life. Like, y'all ain't never had to run a lot of times because of me, like all the time, like unlimited times. Like, come on,
right, listen, I'm finna ask you this question.
I ain't make niggas run.
No, listen.
Everybody run. So, like, who
hold on, look.
The conversation ends with Kyro asking Dre one more time if Dre can admit that he has heard Kyro did something gangster to KTS.
So you never heard my name and no gangster shit with your homies, any of your homies? I want you to put it on any nigga.
I ain't gonna lie to you. Listen to me, no, folks. If you did anything, you got away with it, folks. We do not be thinking that, folks. We think you
on what?
Look, listen. We think you.
I'm finna get off. I'm finna finna get off. You just lied. You just stunning.
Apparently this call had taken place whilst KTS Dre was still on house arrest for another charge where he'd apparently wrestled a cop for a gun after a traffic stop, with him apparently violating the conditions of his bond and being sent back to the Cook County Jail in June. But within a month, Dre would be eligible for bail, and his girlfriend would post his bond on July the 10th, 2021. Dre would have to put up $5,000 and wear an ankle monitor as part of bail conditions. But unfortunately for Dre, he would never even make it home to serve his house arrest. Because as he was leaving Cook County Jail after bailing out, a car pulled up around 8:50 p.m. with two men said to have fired dozens of shots. A total of 64 shots would strike KTS Dre, real name Londre Sylvester, with him later being pronounced dead. After the murder, police were seen putting dozens of evidence markers around the scene, with the news of this brutal shooting once again making its way onto the TV news.
A man is dead after a shooting right in front of the Cook County Jail.
Chicago police say a 31-year-old man and a 60-year-old woman were walking when two people got out of a car and fired shots, striking them both. The man suffered gunshot wounds to the face and chest and was pronounced dead at Mount Sinai. Footage from the scene shows several evidence markers placed on the street and near the sidewalk.
A man named Londre Sylvester was leaving the jail. He went by the rap name KTS Dre. He'd just been bailed out, and police say he was ambushed by two men who got out of a vehicle near the jail. Sylvester was shot as many as 64 times and pronounced dead at Mount Sinai.
In the aftermath of Dre's death, his sister would claim that somebody must have given his location away, and his mother claimed that it was too dangerous to even hold a funeral for him. Naturally, they would fear rivals coming through and shooting the memorial up, ironically something that KTS members had allegedly done to their rivals from No Limit many years before. With that in mind then, it's no surprise that following KTS Dre's death, No Limit members would mock him relentlessly. Kyro would initially pretend to mourn KTS Dre's death, clowning on Instagram and pretending as if he was genuinely upset about the loss, playing emotional music over pictures of him smoking as if he was sad, with Kyro even going as far as to post DMs referring to the McDonalds incident, replying to people telling Dre to come and beat him up again. In fact, after KTS Dre's death, Kyro would frequently make light of the McDonalds incident in social media posts like this one from 2022, where he claimed to have made it out of McDonald's safe. Though to be fair, Kyro would come out soon after making all of these mocking posts to clear the air and say he's just being goofy and cracking jokes because Dre hurt his feelings all those years ago. Meanwhile, Lil Wet would post a facepalm emoji on IG, others would mock Dre for being shot 64 times, posting up that they're going to go and play Nintendo 64, whilst others would make posts suggesting that messing with No Limit was a bad decision. Many said that they were smoking on Dre, some posted pictures in tribute to MadMaxx, EVK Juby celebrated with a big drink, NLMB Jock mocked him, meanwhile many on the KTS side of the war would mourn their loss. Lil Art paid tribute, saying that his killers are going to avenge Dre and that he will see him soon. Ultimately, the death of KTS Dre represented the final chapter in a nearly 10-year-long feud that started the day that KTS Dre and Von confronted Kyro and the other No Limit members in McDonald's. With all of this in mind, many of the No Limit members' online behaviour following the death of KTS Dre can be seen as incredibly suspicious, particularly No Limit Kyro, who after this incident would continue to spend literally hours live on social media arguing with his enemies, dropping into numerous Instagram live sessions with KTS Royale, who would later claim that Kyro killed KTS Dre, with Kyro quickly hanging up.
I don't even tote guns for real, so why you in your rap saying Kyro keep his blick on him? That shit sound police as fuck. I don't hang with, I'm not even No Limit. What the fuck you want to see me with No Limit for? Now you think I'm on your lap? I'm really cutthroat and deep down inside. Oh, I'm cutthroat because I cut niggas' throats.
No, who told you cut? What you think you is? Killer or something?
Do you think I'm a killer, nigga?
No.
Hey, that's fucked up though. I know how to fight though. Don't let that no lack of shit fool you. If we want you, you would be got the mind, man.
Y'all hit the Snake Dre at the county.
Who? What?
And send a phone call through you niggas.
Hey, I'm gone, man. Your ass.
Y'all hit the send a call. You niggas bitches.
While it's not definitively clear who was responsible for the killing of KTS Dre, what is clear is that this beef has escalated so much over the years that it was unlikely that KTS Dre would ever be able to live a long life in the city of Chicago. And while No Limit members were celebrating the death of KTS Dre like no other, sadly this would not represent the end of the war by a long shot. Because even if one of their most feared ops was off the street, there would still be an endless supply of enemies and their surviving relatives gunning to kill and hurt members of the No Limit crew, with these deadly feuds unfortunately raging on to this very day. The No Limit gang had been fighting numerous enemies on various fronts for decades, with two of the main conflicts ultimately seeing the most feared enemies from each area lose their lives. KTS Von and Dre from Lakeside had lost their lives 6 years apart, and BlackMobb's most feared killer Shootashellz had also lost his life in the war, but No Limit themselves had also suffered heavy losses in the streets. The passing of their most feared shooter MadMaxx was a devastating loss, and unfortunately the other war with their rivals from Pocket Town would heat up drastically in 2020, with an enormous amount of bloodshed being witnessed as people on both sides would lose their lives back to back. A Pocket Town member by the name of Greasy, real name Eric Chapman Jr., would be killed in McKinley Park on the 1st of May 2020 at age 30. He was shot in the chest after an argument with another man around 2:30 AM. 2 months later, on July the 13th, 2020, a prominent Pocket Town and KTS member, KTS Rio, real name Lee DeMario Cameron, would be sitting in a car at a gas station on the 7000 block of South Damon Avenue when a silver SUV pulled up and somebody started shooting, with Rio later being pronounced dead in hospital. It was believed that the hit on KTS Rio was a personal revenge attack due to Rio allegedly killing a No Limit OG by the name of Boss Blizz back in 2011. The next death would come on September the 28th, 2020, when Pocket Town's K-Dog, real name Kevin Forbes, would be shot on the 6900 block of South Woodlawn Avenue, later being dropped off at St. Bernard Hospital with a gunshot to the head, with him being pronounced dead on arrival. Several other individuals would lose their lives from Pocket Town over the course of 2020, with threads on Reddit suggesting as many as 6 people would lose their lives in this period of only a few months. But in 2021 would come a devastating loss for No Limit, when a beloved friend of theirs that was supposedly out of the streets would lose their life as a result of this conflict. Gregory Jackson III, aka Lil Greg, was a member of NLMB and close friend of G Herbo. But on January the 28th, 2021, Greg would visit the Studio 19 barbershop at 1931 South State Street. Story has it that he would come face to face with a Pocket Town affiliate that he had a personal feud with at the barbershop. No confrontation took place there and then, as it said both individuals involved were not personally shooters, but each man would apparently call their respective group of friends to find out whether or not a move needed to be made. Ultimately, the other individual left and Greg remained in the barbershop, but he wouldn't be safe there. It was later reported that while sitting in the barber's, somebody would walk in and shoot him in the face. After Greg's death hit the news, the police would name him firmly as a friend of G Herbo and a member of the NLMB gang. Apparently, Greg was like a brother to G Herbo, with Herbo releasing a long heartfelt statement about the loss, as did other No Limit members like Mally. Greg clearly was plugged into the rap game because even 21 Savage posted him after his passing. This murder would hit G Herbo particularly hard, with Herb later admitting that it was this loss that sent him into a spiral of alcoholism.
What's some shit that when you sit by yourself, you just get depressed about, like?
Thinking about my little brother though, I ain't gonna lie right now. He passed away in January 28th. I'll be thinking about him a lot because that shit wasn't really for him. I ain't gonna lie, like sometimes I be feeling like a nigga did something to him just to hurt me. I don't know, I was drinking a lot. I went into like a slump, like real, like just emotional slump, just drinking all day, every day, going to the studio, drinking.
A Pocket Town affiliate would end up being linked to the vehicle used in the murder of Lil Greg, being arrested with a gun in the getaway car, but ultimately not being charged in connection with the murder. Interestingly, the gun used in this crime would end up being connected to 3 Navy SEALs who had been busted running a gun racket in Chicago for years, with the news later reporting that US soldiers in Kentucky were selling weapons across state lines to Pocket Town gang members who were using those guns to settle scores on the streets. In the aftermath of Lil Greg's death, Lil Don from Pocket Town would post to Instagram mocking his ops and suggesting that Lil Greg was the biggest scorer of 2021. But following this, what would appear to be a brutal revenge attack would take place. Clips circulated seeming to suggest that a memorial party was being held on K-Dog from Pocket Town's birthday, with many Pocket Town members said to be attending the party that took place on March the 26th, 2021. In what police would later describe as a mass shooting in Pocket Town, it's alleged that a number of people pulled up to the event on 2500 block West 79th Street and begun shooting into the crowd indiscriminately as people were leaving the party. 8 people were shot and the police claimed to have recovered more than 100 shell casings from outside the venue. One individual believed to have been hit in the shooting was arrested in a car speeding to the hospital, with police finding a gun in slide lock, suggesting that all of the bullets in the clip had been fired recently, with later footage from a security camera being released, apparently showing Pocket Town members returning fire, but I can't show you that here. One witness who was a Marine veteran would tell the news that his experience of the scene was like something out of Desert Storm. Unfortunately, as a result of this shooting, Spook, real name Dante Thomas, would be killed by a gunshot to the head, being pronounced dead at the scene. Another Pocket Town affiliate by the name of Lord was shot in the head and taken to hospital in critical condition, later passing away, with another affiliate by the name of Denny G being shot in the stomach and later being seen on social media recovering in the hospital. No Limit members would celebrate following this tragic shootout. Some would publicly show love to Lil Greg after the incident, with Kyro apparently going on to call Fearro from No Limit the savage Savage of the Year, but that euphoria naturally would never last. It's said that retaliation would come soon after this, and in the aftermath, numerous shootings had been recorded in No Limit territory. It's claimed that eventually that other individual who Greg faced off with in the barbershop before being killed would eventually lose their life in a July 2022 shooting. Ultimately, this was just the latest in another long line of murders back and forth between these two crews. Clearly there's been no love lost between these groups over the years, and the unfortunate truth is, it's really difficult to see the violence ever coming to an end whilst those involved continue to escalate things on both sides. There really are no winners in the streets. The only thing even close to resembling a win is simply getting out with your life intact. Herbo was lucky enough to do that, but in his own words, the trauma that he experienced on the street left him suffering from PTSD and addiction problems. It's truly hard to imagine what Herbo or any of the No Limit soldiers went through over these decades-long wars. It's a uniquely tragic experience that very few people can truly say they identify with or relate to. But perhaps one of the most fascinating things to come out of this situation is the fact that several people mentioned throughout this story would sit down to do hours-long interviews, speaking their piece about everything that's gone down over the years. And in the final chapter of this story, we'll take a look at No Limit Kyro's explosive 2022 interview with 16 shot and visuals, where he finally broke down his true feelings about the war candidly. The ups, the downs, the brotherhood, and betrayal, leaving nothing off the table and clearly not scared to hurt a few feelings. Kyro from No Limit has been one of the most outspoken people involved in the deadly wars between the gangs hailing from Terrortown, but he also seems to have a sense of humour about it. On the 9th of February 2022, Kyro appears in a vlog alongside a man that he calls his lawyer, telling the viewers that he doesn't kill his ops, they just magically disappear.
We ain't no killers or nothing like that, but if a nigga fuck with us, they gon' magically disappear. We not no gangbangers. Everybody who we was ever into it with, they just magically disappeared. We didn't have shit to do with that. All us in this bitch, I'm a hoe ass nigga. Everybody know that. All the ops. I'm a hoe ass nigga. Everything we do is legal. We don't do no crime. You know, some people might see us called Crime Stoppers. We ain't did shit to nobody. We just look like gangbangers and stuff. I don't know why. Rock block shit. Fazo land shit, so.
He also introduces Lil Wet to the camera, saying that he can't say much.
This the Lil Wet Beat. Y'all know the big Wet Beat. This the little one though. But he's still big one out here. I ain't gonna tell you, I can't say too much.
It's also worth noting that in this vlog, Kyro is in the studio with a Herbo track playing in the background that he's mouthing along to, with Kyro at one point saying that these lyrics are real. Clearly at one point Kyro believed in Herbo and his lyrics, but at some point that would all change. And in March 2022, the world would witness No Limit Kyro sitting down with 16 shot and visuals for a 2.5-hour tell-all interview. This was an incredible piece of Chicago history, and one of the very few times somebody from a gang war like this who isn't a rapper would speak so candidly, at length, on the events that had unfolded in the streets. And apparently, respected No Limit members Lil Wet and Fearro were in the room during this interview, with most people believing that this is an endorsement of the things Kyro said. Over the course of this interview, Kyro spoke with incredible introspection on feeling like a lost soul who was badly influenced by the older people in his neighborhood, saying that he was smoking and drinking since age 5 and that Terrortown was an awful place to grow up.
You know, I used to be smoking and drinking and shit when I was like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm a lost soul, fuck. You know, the older guys, they fuck me up in the head. That's why niggas be saying shit like, shit called Terrortown and shit like that. Cause niggas used to cause terror and shit.
Kyro also gave an interesting insight into how hard it is for kids in the neighborhood to escape the cycle of violence, saying neighborhood kids' disputes would follow them all the way to school and back home, meaning that in the end they would eventually be safer dropping out of education and just staying on their block.
This gang shit, folk, like that shit for the niggas at school. You going to school trying to get your education, motherfucker, come put your brain on the book. That school shit, motherfucker, that shit'll follow you there. At church, that shit'll follow you there. All the places you feel safe, that shit'll follow you. That shit'll follow you home. And the street shit.
At one point, 16 Shots asks Kyro if he's considered breaking the cycle, telling his youngers that they don't need to participate in the war or gangbanging. To which Kyro says that's exactly what he did, yet here they are with him, gangbanging and making a choice to ride with the gang.
I told y'all that before now, and I said, man, don't be in this shit. They right here with me right now, gangbanging. These people right here gangbanging, they didn't listen. Cause that's their choice for they grown.
But most explosively in this interview, Kyro would have some choice words for Herbo, initially explaining that the reason he doesn't rap is because he doesn't know how to pretend and he believes that most rappers lie.
Nah, I never made no song. I don't know how to pretend. It's only like 10% niggas out here telling the truth in their raps. All the rest of that shit, entertainment.
Kyro would go on to say that he was offended by rappers making money off the streets, but not living it, suggesting that many rappers simply steal other people's life stories.
Making money off shit that other niggas to risk their life for. He rapping, but he ain't out here killing shit, sliding none of that shit. But his homie them out here sliding shit. Now he get in the booth. Now motherfucker be going overboard.
And it would eventually become crystal clear that Kyro was talking about G Herbo, with him openly putting dirt on Herbo's reputation and suggesting that he was never sure about him.
I wasn't never close with her. He wasn't never coming outside. I asked him what he was. He said, I'm no limit. I said, how the fuck you no limit? I'm really no limit. You ain't never been on my block. Where the fuck you from?
Ultimately, Kyro would say that he loves that Herbo made it out of Terrortown and became a millionaire. But he says that he isn't proud of G Herbo not coming back and helping the people who were there with him in the early days.
I love him for making this shit, but I ain't proud of him for not doing shit for the niggas around him, who was around him before he made it.
Kyro would go on to say that a lot of people get success and forget about their past, and that Herbo is one of those people.
A lot of niggas get on and forget that shit. Niggas like her.
Kyro would eventually elaborate that he's not just looking for a handout, and that he was really upset about the fact that G Herbo would regularly promise specific things to the crew and then let them down.
Her say, man, I got the 150 Dream Team label, I'm finna sign like 3-4 y'all. Folks reneged on the guys. Never signed them.
Kyro would accuse Herbo of promising No Limit members bail money and then reneging.
Man, we need folks short 5,000 on his bond. Motherfuckers saying goofy shit. Fuck you get locked up for?
Kyro would also accuse Herbo of rapping about their dead friends for clout, going as far as to suggest that Herbo only met Vito once.
Majority of the niggas who died, he know them niggas. A lot of niggas he be rapping about, all the older guys, he don't know them. He big, I don't even know if he know Vito for real. His dad probably seen bro once. You see your big cousin, I'm talking to Fazo and them, and you like, oh yeah, Fazo, what's up, big bro? He on shit like that, like you don't even know Fazo all the way probably.
Kyro would then go on to quote G Herbo's own lyrics, where he claimed he would take Lil Wet to Egypt if he beat the 4 murder charges, with Kyro dramatically proclaiming that Lil Wet has still not left Chicago.
He said my little cousin in the county fight quadruple bodies. When he come home, when he beat this shit, we going to Egypt. Bro ain't went to Egypt yet. Bro beat his shit, he is shot right.
As the conversation went on, Kyro proceeded to rip G Herbo for not living the lifestyle other No Limit members lived, even going as far as to compare him to 6ix9ine.
I know four of them don't fuck with him cause he do weird shit and don't do shit for his block. He say all type of shit he don't do. I compare him to 6ix9ine, fuck. He wanted to join Treyway. In
response to questions over whether or not he could ever fix things with Herbo, Kyro said outright no, saying that it's too late and too many people have died without Herbo coming back to help.
If a nigga will let 10 of your niggas die after they get on, and then knowing they was just right here with us, I feel like you never gave a fuck for like, cause you was just right here ducking shots and shit with us too. But ain't shit he could do cause it's like, you waited too long. We can't even enjoy this shit, all our niggas dead.
Kyro went on to point out how hurt he was when he heard lyrics on Herb's song Riding With It, where Herb appeared to say that he wouldn't die for his block because other people had already died for it.
I love my hood, you think I'm die for that shit? All them niggas already died for that shit. How the fuck you gonna say this shit about your homies for them? That nigga said candlelights niggas out there sneak this and don't be crying and shit. You know we out here fucked up down. You putting this shit in rap, shitting on us.
And towards the end of the interview, Kyro even opened up about his appearance in the No Lackin' 3 video at McDonald's, with Kyro breaking down that situation in great detail. I won't do it here, but I definitely suggest you go and give it a watch. But towards the end of the interview, Kyro would come out with yet another quotable, saying that the No Limit gang never killed anybody, but that God killed them.
Niggas that we never killed, no nigga, God killed them.
Kyro's frank discussion of G Herbo taking stories from real gangsters ruffled a lot of feathers. Some people, like Lil Reese, came out to defend G Herbo, whilst others pointed out the fairly reasonable counter-argument that Kyro or the rest of No Limit really shouldn't be relying on the generosity of one man for their survival and prosperity, suggesting that they can't wait for G Herbo to put them on, they should put themselves on. Ultimately, both sides have valid points, and perhaps there's a much wider observation to be made. That G Herbo, who was already facing several legal cases, including a large currently unresolved fraud case, should absolutely not be giving money or opportunities to documented gang members. Realistically, it only takes a few misguided messages or recorded phone calls with the wrong people to have Herbo tied up in a racketeering case with the whole gang relating to all of the crimes and killings they have potentially done, which ultimately would completely blow this entire career that Herbo had spent years working on in order to get out of the cycle of violence. But at the end of the day, Kyro had made his thoughts known and spoken his truth to the world. Some people might look at G Herbo differently, while others might look at Kyro differently. This was a blockbuster interview that went incredibly viral, and off the back of it, Kyro would capitalize on his newly increased profile, continuing to release vlogs filmed on his block, once again coming out with tongue-in-cheek quotables where he claims no limit do not kill people.
Be advised, man, we don't kill people, we don't rob people. We just out chilling.
I'm just young, trying to live my life.
That's my 290, homie.
Anything can happen. Anywhere.
That's the motto.
Fuck all our enemies, man. Them niggas ain't no shit.
People want to see this shit. I don't know why. I'm a regular guy. Why the fuck y'all want to see me? Why? I don't know.
He'd show his crew hanging out on the block riding bikes, with everyone apparently comfortable outside because their ops ain't gonna do nothing.
And we out here riding motorcycles and shit because niggas ain't gonna do shit. Oh no.
But of course, if there were any ops watching, Kyro reminded them once again that if you mess with them, God will kill you.
One of us, you might just disappear. God take you off earth. I mean, you know, God, no big deal. He blessed you.
You see, folk done picked up on that God shit. God be the one out here killing people. They told me God just bought a switch. He just tanked that bitch down here.
A man is dead after a shooting right in front of the Cook County Jail.
The man suffered gunshot wounds to the face and chest and was pronounced dead at Mount Sinai.
Oh, they just killed a whole bunch of kids up today.
Police say he was ambushed by two men who got out of a vehicle near the jail. Sylvester was shot as many as 64 times and pronounced dead at Mount Sinai.
He was a 21-year-old man, shot a number of times. He was dead when police arrived, and he was out there this morning for a little bit while investigators taped off the scene.
They just laying there on the street. They've been out here for almost 4 hours. 4 hours. How do you lay a kid on the ground?
It was one of more than a dozen murders the first weekend in August.
Police say the quadruple murders outside this South Shore restaurant were a planned execution in retaliation for the murder of Maurice Harris's father.
Harris is only 19 years old, and while his juvenile record is protected, one commander says the system failed him.
I'll just be completely honest, this story is one of the most shocking things that I've ever covered. This is by far the most violent story that I have ever covered on this channel. And honestly, I was just blown away by the sheer brutality on display in the streets of Terrortown. I'm not going to pretend like there's something that I can do or say to make these decades-long and bitter feuds any better. All I hope is that this long and detailed piece can give you a better understanding of why things are the way they are in America's most dangerous places. Dozens of young men lost their lives as a result of this gang war, and it's hard not to feel that in many ways it was really all for nothing. Every killing can be traced back to an earlier incident where somebody else was wronged or killed, leaving behind another person with a lifelong vendetta that they're willing to kill to settle. I can't pretend to relate. I don't know what it's like to grow up losing friends and knowing the people who killed them are only a few blocks away. I don't know what it's like to be consumed by hate, grief, and revenge day in, day out. But what I do know is that not everybody who makes that decision to pick up a gun and kill an op is doing it with a clear head. I'm really not making excuses, but if we as a society ever want to make things better in communities torn apart by gang violence, then we have to have some empathy and focus on the real causes of these problems. As Kyro said himself, you've got kids as young as 5 being given liquor, drugs, and guns. Many of these young men like Fazo and MadMaxx lost their parental figures in horrible ways before they were even old enough to know right from wrong. They might have done terrible things in their lives, but how is it fair to expect those young men to grow up and do the right thing when all they were ever taught was being wronged? By the ops, by the police, by wider society. Sadly, the violence in Terrortown continues to this very day, and I've got to say it was incredibly disheartening during the course of writing this video to keep seeing news breaking of numerous new people losing their lives in relation to this war. That really drove home to me just how endless this cycle is. To me, Kyro's interview was poignant, not just for his insights into the realities of gang life. Looking past him being upset that G Herbo sold him and the gang a dream, I think it's important to look at how Kyro's story differs from G Herbo's, because it highlights the wider problem. There's really not a lot of hope in the streets. And if your only hope for getting out is that someone else on your block becomes a rapper, blows up and comes back to help, then you'll be disappointed. And realistically, Herbo simply can't be back in the hood giving chains to his killers, because if he did, he would be putting his life and his livelihood in danger. And sadly, when it comes to the streets, it seems that the exit door goes only one way. Another person who I barely mentioned in this story is the brother of G Fazo, Fabian, who would leave Terrortown after the devastating murder of his brother, choosing instead to focus on basketball and going on to have an illustrious professional career playing outside of the United States. He made a choice and got out too, just like G Herbo, but maybe attracting a little bit less attention. And while I respect Kyro's decision to remain solid and never leave his brothers, ultimately for some people, they do just have to leave to survive. And I don't believe that's a decision anyone else can pass judgment on. I just hope that many more of the next generation of young men in Terrortown grow up and make that decision. I pray for everybody who lost their life as part of this story, and for everybody still risking their lives in the dangerous streets of this world. I truly hope you make it out. Thank you for watching this video, and rest in peace to everyone who lost their lives. I want to give a huge shout out to Chicago Scene 88, whose incredible research made this possible. Go and check out his channel if you want to learn more about the stories of Chicago gangsters. I'd also like to thank my team, my editor Camille, my research assistants on this job Cormac and Sam, as well as all of my patrons for supporting the channel. Thanks so much, you all mean the world to me, and peace out.